Alrighty, so the stream is starting soon. Like, this stream is like extremely overhyped, and I don't really understand why. Like, there has been like so much hype about this Campfire, and I honestly don't think it's gonna be like major. But I kind of like thought, because it's like so hyped, like usually I don't do these kind of things, but I made a little tier list here, which basically shows like what I think is gonna happen and what I dream is gonna happen. As you can see, most stuff in S tier is like dream. But I think there's a possibility. So I think there's a possibility they bring back like arcane multi-shot, like basically skill runes, like we had then in Diablo 3. I think there's a possibility they're gonna be bringing this back because they kind of had it as a construct skill in Season of the Construct. So, they might bring this back. That would be S tier because I want to have a multi-shot sorceress, like big time. And then I think they will do like the codex. So I hope they will put the highest rolled aspects into the codex and not will just make some stupid thing with the codex. Like, I really have it like here in S tier, right? So if they make like something good with the codex, though, that you basically just can pick your highest rolled aspect of the codex, that would be amazing. But not so sure about these two, but they might happen. Well, unlimited level nightmare dungeons, that would be awesome, but I highly doubt that's gonna like happen. And then we have like extract unique powers and use as affix, like actually that's not right. And use as like legendary power, I guess. Legendary power with an R. So if you could extract the unique powers and use them as a legendary aspect, that would be amazing. That is like something. I'm not predicting this. I really have no clue, but this is something which they might have cooking there because it's also something they have been using before, basically. And then that's basically my S tier predictions, and then we have like A tier, which is like just rework affixes. Like I think the itemization changes is gonna be an affix rework, and that's going to be it. So I have it here like just do elemental damage, physical damage, dot damage, crit damage, and call it a day. Get rid of everything else, basically. Would be pretty cool. I think it's not gonna be that simple. I think it's gonna be like worse, but this would be awesome. And then we have like one new unique per class. I know I should even put this in A tier. Like honestly, this is like B tier. Because you know what? A tier would be 2 uniques per class, and S tier would be 3 uniques per class or something like that. So let's just move this here. More conjuration and minion buffs. Big fan of it. Let's see if it happens. And then we have B tier. Remove useless affixes. Let's hope they remove some of the useless affixes, like, the stun duration reduction and all that crap. And then I think we're gonna get a somewhat useless crafting system. So my prediction is that you can craft a rare item and you can select one affix and get 3 random ones. And then you can do an enchantment on top of it or something like that. So not like anything like brand new, just something. I just feel like there's gonna be something rather useless to crafting involved here. If I get a surprise that they actually add something which is useful in crafting, okay, but I think it's going to be rather useless here. And yeah, again, that's the 1 unique per class. And then, I put the random Season 4 theme as C tier, so because, at least for me, it doesn't matter at all what the theme is. Like, all the themes have been terrible except for the vampires. And the vampires haven't been very good. They just haven't been terrible, right? And then, like, in the lowest tier, I put, like, some random AOZ, like, endgame. Because, you know what? They say they're gonna add some endgame. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be garbage. Like, every endgame they have been adding was, like, complete garbage. And I highly doubt that the new endgame will be any better. And then I have PDR coming March 26th. Which is, in my opinion, way too late, but it's just my feeling. They're gonna add it like on Tuesday. And Yeah, so if they had PTR on March 26, it's actually not beneficial. It will actually hurt the game because you know what? They're not going to fix any single bug, and all what it's going to do is it's going to spoil stuff. And then when the new season starts, everything is already be known. So everything cool about the season start will be gone by just putting this PTR out like 2 weeks before the season start. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Just don't do it. Do it 2 months before the season starts so it makes sense. But if you put it like 2 weeks, you're just going to spoil stuff. And you're going to remove like the whole racing story in the beginning, like figuring out the builds in the beginning of the season. Like the most fun part of the beginning of a season, you're actually going to remove it with this PTR. And the PTR is already way too late anyway. So I assume they're going to launch it on the 26th. And it's way too late. And I think it's like the biggest L for Diablo at this point. And then obviously we're not going to get extra stash tabs, right? That's the DT as well. So that's kind of my prediction of what could be cooking and, you know, where I rank it. And, you know, maybe there's going to be like completely different stuff. Who knows? It's really just like what I'm thinking they might have been cooking. And, you know, when the video starts, we're going to look at it and see what actually gets implemented and, you know, how far off I actually am. You know, maybe I'm like completely off. Maybe I'm a little bit off. Who knows, right? But yeah, that's pretty much like it. And yeah, let me know, like, what do you think about it? I feel like, you know, there might be more to itemization updates than this. But I mean, I would wish like, but I really don't think it will be. Like, I think the most amazing stuff would be if they bring back this arcing multi-shot, like some kind of this skill rune system. That would be like amazing if they do that. But, you know, no clue, right? But that would be awesome. And the codex part would be awesome. Not that the change in the codex is basically a quality of life change, which I'm putting in S tier. So it's already like speaking about, you know, how much confidence I have in this, because I rate basically just giving me a random quality of life change in the codex at the highest tier already, right? So it doesn't change anything about the game at all, like the codex change. Yes, it's going to make your life a little bit easier, but it's not going to change anything at all. And I think it's one of the major announcements. And it will basically take away, it will take away, how do you say, focus from other stuff. So they got, yeah, we give you this quality of life change here, be happy. But to be honest, like this quality of life change should have been in the game from the very beginning here. So yeah, that's kind of you know what I'm thinking. And then there obviously will be class balance changes, right? So I'm putting the class balance changes in like probably in B tier. Well, let's put them in A tier for now, right? So balance changes. Why the hell is this font size different? What is Google doing to me? Okay, so class balance changes. I think there will be some, but I don't think there will be major class balance changes. So yeah. And one thing I was thinking about was also like gems, because gems are like literally like, at least the offensive gems and the gems in the jewelry are like pretty meaningless in the end game. The offensive gems in the weapons do not do anything at all. You know, so maybe, you know, do something with the useless offensive gems, right? So that would be something they might have been doing, because literally it doesn't matter if you have offensive gems in or not. It's like going to be like 2% of your damage. And I feel like that is not enough for a gem slot, because it should be pretty valuable, the gem slot. But yeah, let's see. So I really don't know why this is like so extremely hyped. But let's see. Really just what I'm thinking is, I don't know why they put so much hype on this Campfire, but we shall see, right? I don't think like season 4 is gonna save D4. Like I know a lot of people are saying like, you know, season 4 is gonna be so massive, it's gonna save D4 like just right there. And I don't think it's gonna do anything like that. I really hope the itemization changes are worth it, because what D4 is like missing right now is itemization progression, right? First of all, the itemization system is like completely terrible. It's like the worst itemization system I have like ever seen, and like, you know, literally like every like mobile game you install has a better itemization. Like take like 3 like, you know, Chinese developers, they smash out a mobile game in like 3 days and has better itemization than D4. So really, like, it's not hard to improve, but they have to improve it the right way, right? You have to have gear progression. So if you're like level 70, you have to get like, you know, okay gear, right? Then you're level 80, you have to get better gear. You're level 90, you have to get even better gear. You are level 100, you have to get, you know, let's call it average gear. You have to get average gear at level 100. And then there's got to be the end game content. Oh, it's starting, I guess.
Season of the Construct has
that's
so
the
much
replay
going on.
again. We're not gonna. I don't even care. So at level 100, you should get average gear, and then there should be the end game systems which allow you to get very, very good gear. But right now in D4, essentially, like from level 70, you're getting max level gear. Like, so it's like completely meaningless. Even if there would be crafting, it would be meaningless because the current gear is just garbage, no matter like what gear you're getting, right? So that's kind of, you know, my thinking there. So they really gotta improve on the gear. So let's just make this smaller. All right. Beautiful. So yeah, like I would wish there would be like some kind of progression system in the gear, like every other game has it. Like for example, Last Epoch has like a great progression system in the gear. Like the items get rarer and rarer, like more rare in the end, and they get then very, very rare, but you can still get updates if you like farm. You farm materials, and the materials you can use to craft new gear. Like all this stuff doesn't exist in D4, right? So like it literally has like no itemization system at all. It has just some random items with some random affixes, and that's it. So yeah, let's see what they do about it, right?
Protecting the main treasure.
Why do they repeat the last trailer all the time? I don't get it.
The construct, they're going to come across a broken version of the Seneschal during the quest line. The Seneschal is a special construct that was built to command the other constructs based on Ayajan's and Zoltan's direction. Ayajan of Chaldean repair.
I mean, you know, how many devs does Helldivers have? Probably not so many. But they have been. You got to put it into perspective, right? What we're gonna see right now is the work of like a team of, I would say, somewhere around probably 100 people for 6 months, right? So take 100 people and let them work for 6 months, and then that's what we're gonna see now. So just think about it while you see it. 100 people, 6 months have been working on this. Just put it into perspective, right? And I feel like, you know, it's not worth like, you know, 100 people's work for like 6 months what they have been delivering, and let's see what they will deliver now, right? Yeah, exactly. So they worked 6 months on Gauntlet, right? Like look at season 3. Like they worked 6 months on a random companion and Gauntlet wasn't even ready. Like literally, that's what they worked 6 months with 100 people. Like, if I would be the boss of those 100 people, I would like, screw it. I'm just gonna fire this 100 people, and you know, I'm gonna make what's it gonna be, like 8 million a year? So I would take the 8 million a year instead of like having those 100 people building the Gauntlet, right? But yeah, it's like 4 more minutes. Let's see if they start on time. I'm like overly excited for this. Why can't you zoom this? Terrible. Make reality a little smaller. So let's see. Like my prediction on the endgame system is it's just going to be like some random endgame system, really. Maybe they're gonna call it like Rift. Like they can't call it Rift, but maybe they bring back AOZ was like something different. Maybe AOZ was the bosses from the Gauntlet or whatever. Like they're just gonna use the same thing over again, right? So they basically have the tools. They can build a map and put mobs onto it, and they have like a timer. Like that's the 3 tools they have, and they're gonna take these 3 tools and just gonna make a new one. Call it different, whatever. But I don't know how they're gonna call it, but I just got a feeling like that's gonna be it. And maybe they give it the leaderboard then. Maybe they just take the Gauntlet and make it like a progressive system. So you start with monster level like 70, and then you can go to like 80, 90, 100, 110, 120 or whatever. Like you can go higher and higher, but they're still gonna use the same random system they have, because I don't think they're like capable of doing something new really. Like that, just my impression or what we have seen like since the game release, that they just always, just use the same tools they already had, rearrange them a little bit and, call it a day. How long is this video? Why are people upvoting this? Like, we have already seen this. Like, put the thumbs down.
Unlocks World Tier 4, Torment Mode, can compete in the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet starts several weeks into the season of the Construct.
Maybe we get World Tier 5. Let's see.
Unlike other dungeons, every time you and
let's put this to S tier, World Tier 5. Let's go.
Exactly the same.
World Tier 5. Which is nothing special really. They already have it in the game. It's just a little bit different scaling. So maybe they put World Tier 5. Let's see.
This is meant to test
that would be funny.
Leveled up and geared out build. It's highly replayable, enabling a broad set of player choices.
But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the PTR.
Top players to compete with one another in the Gauntlet.
Like, I really dislike the PTR. It is way too late. It's just gonna spoil stuff which should be discovered at the beginning of the season. They're not gonna fix a single bug whatsoever. So I really, really dislike this whole PTR idea.
Board competition. Can't wait to see you in.
So like it's 7 p.m. Let's see what's gonna happen, right? I'm so excited.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo 4 Campfire chat. We have a lot to talk about today. I say that all the time.
What are they out of Diablo shirts?
This time we really do. Yeah, we will let the community decide.
Like 1 in 4 Diablo shirts, like that's a pure quota.
My name is Adam Fletcher. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community lead for the Diablo franchise. Of course, I'm joined by a wonderful panel here, plus one other who is off camera and will be jumping in. We have Charles Dunn, who's a game designer on Diablo 4, Mr. Joe Shelley, who is the game director of Diablo 4, and Mr. Joe Pipora, who's the associate game director of Diablo 4.
Hello.
And we will be joined by Adam Jackson, who's the lead class designer of Diablo 4, before we get to the class-specific information that we're going to share today.
Oh, look,
but
they deactivated the
Joe
chat.
wanted to jump in, talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to be talking about today, and then we will go through a plethora of changes coming to Diablo 4, and of course, details about the first ever PTR, public test realm, for D4. And for people who don't know,
I like how he says
realm is
first
kind of
ever.
like a private server where players can actually end up playing early content and test that out and provide feedback to us. So we'll go through all the details on that as well. But Mr. Joe Shelley, want to kick it off?
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so I want to frame this update. This is a Season 4 update. We're going to talk a lot about systems here, and I wanted to do a little bit of framing. When we think about Diablo, right? Diablo is an ARPG. Everybody knows what an ARPG is, right? It's an action role-playing game. But it's such a broad category.
Get to the point,
right?
bro.
You have lots of games that
What are you talking
ARPGs.
about?
Like a game like Hollow Knight, for example, is an ARPG, but it's also a Metroidvania, right? Or a game like Hades, which is an ARPG. It's also a roguelike. or something like Elden Ring, which is an ARPG, but it's also Souls-like, right?
See, they're already starting to fill like their stuff with random content, which nobody cares about because they don't have enough stuff.
Call it a Diablo-like, sure. But another way to describe it would be as a systems ARPG, right? An SARPG. And so what distinguishes this kind of game from those other games that are in this same space that are all ARPGs, right? And it's really about when you're making decisions and what the most important decisions you're making are. The most important decisions in a game like this are the decisions you're making before combat, between combat. Decisions you make in combat are important too, but those are the ones that are the most important. Action combat, RPG elements, and systems are all foundational elements of any ARPG.
Dude, just give loot. Everything else is like nobody cares. Just loot.
The systems in particular, including the end game, itemization, things like crafting, those are what comprise the soul of the game. And they're the lifeblood of a game like Diablo 4, and they don't just have to be deep, but also lush.
It doesn't have to be deep. He's already excusing that it's not going to be deep because it doesn't have to.
As many of you know, we've been designing this update for a while. We're putting it on the PTR because it's important, and it's important to get it right, like Adam was saying. And everything that you'll hear about today is from that S part of the SARPG, the soul of it.
The soul.
Joe, Adam, and Charles are going to take you through the changes, all the changes, in detail. And there are a lot. So sit back, grab a drink, get your React faces ready, and let's do it.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Joe. So I know what we want to do first, we kind of have an agenda of items, but one thing we do want to talk about really quickly is about PTR. We do want to get some housekeeping notes and what players can expect from PTR, along with the dates for PTR, so when they can actually jump in. So,
oh my God, it's even later.
On April 2nd, and it's actually going to run for a week through April 9th. So
this is so stupid.
PTR and
oh my God,
try everything out that we're
about
to tell you all about here in this stream. Now, I know a lot of people are probably
April
asking, like,
2nd.
hey, that seems pretty close to the end of Season 3.
Jesus.
Is that enough time for you guys to actually react to the feedback that we're going to be getting from PTR? And I will note here that we do plan on actually extending Season 3 for this. So Season 3 is actually going to have a new end date. We're pushing it back a few weeks to ensure that we get all the feedback from this PTR and we apply it to Season 4 to make sure that all these new system changes that we're doing are right and work for the community based off of everyone's.
Did you notice they literally look at this? Season 4 is not ready, and now they tell you we're gonna expand the PTR, so we gonna let the season run for longer because you can do the PTR
message, which actually.
Oh my God! They're not ready with their shit
today, probably.
Again, and they try to cover it. Oh my God, this is so terrible.
We can make sure that we apply all the feedback from PTR.
Oh
which
wow!
On April 2nd through April 9th. One other note is that again, PTR itself is specifically for PC BattleNet only.
Look at this.
This just allows us to be a little bit more agile on our team. Does this mean that PTR is only going to be PC BattleNet only in the future? No, it doesn't. We are going to try to explore other ways of being able to bring
this bold,
PTR,
dude.
When we do have a PTR to players in the future. But for now, this one is PC BattleNet only. So, and we'll have instructions of how to actually.
Oh wow, this is like so terrible, dude. This is like
the public test realm client.
Like nobody is playing
Diablo 4 through
before
the PC BattleNet client next week when we actually have a full blog that will explain all the details of how to do that well before the start of PTR in itself.
Wow.
But then there's other notes with PTR as well, because there's probably going to be a lot of questions of like, well, am I starting with like a level 1 character? Am I taking my existing characters?
Dude, who cares? It's like 1 month before season end.
Fresh new server. You will actually be starting fresh on PTR, but we do have boosting options available because
for $100 you can boost your PTR character
and test out some of these features that we're obviously in these system changes that we're doing specifically for PTR. So I think we actually have a slide, I believe. Speaking of which, I know.
Look at this, 100 million gold.
Back to me, Lucas. Sorry. I've seen a lot of feedback about, hey, you guys have a lot of slides. Sometimes the slides have a lot of information specifically.
This is disgusting, honestly.
That we need to actually showcase because there might be a lot of details in there. I will say we will have slides today because there's a lot to share, but we also have a live build. So we will actually be going to the live build to showcase some of the changes, just because we know that a lot of players want to see more gameplay or see them in game. So we do have that here today. Okay. Now we can go to the next one.
Oh, look at this
slide. So there will be PTR boosting features available.
Oh my god.
For players that are jumping into PTR, you will be able to boost a character immediately up to 100. When you do that, you will receive 100 million gold and 1,000 obols. You can do this multiple times. You can even trade amongst gold across your characters, of course. And then we will also mark the campaign completed for your character, as well as offering you a mount.
Of course, because the campaign is shit.
And more. Skill points again. Paragon. Fog of War will be completely cleared. Altar of Lilith points will also be cleared. It's actually going to match the renown progress on your original Diablo 4 account. So if you've already done
that's actually not too bad, I have to say.
You'll end up getting that completely
like this is kind of a W
for PTR. And of course, all the class system mechanics, things like enchantment for sorcerer, or like Book of the Dead stuff will be enabled for you for
the
character that you end up creating for PTR or any other characters that you create. And then all your Paragon glyphs will be unlocked.
100 people had to program this for 6 months.
And I believe glyphs are also...
Yeah, glyphs are maxed.
Yeah, glyphs are also maxed up. So you will have that capability there. There are like a few things that will be not present in PTR, but that is like, for example, one of the things is Codex of Power, but we'll explain why here in a minute. There's some more details related to Codex of Power for players to kind of understand why that's not present there.
Well,
so
because it's not ready.
Of course, feedback for the PTR across all our different social channels, across all our different community channels, and we will be turning on
Codex not ready on
PTR.
PTR.
On Diablo4.com. That is not on right now, so no one can actually see it. But once that does come online, we will also be checking feedback there. So please provide feedback based off of everything that you are hearing today and playing through during PTR.
I already have like 3 details
that we actually mentioned because the team is going to be looking at it and making sure that we can make any changes before the start of Season 4. So with that, now that we've gotten through the PTR like housekeeping notes, Mr. Joe Pipe.
Let's dive in, okay?
Let's dive in.
There is quite a bit to cover today, so we're going to try to move briskly through parts where we can. So there's 3 major things we're going to be discussing today. The first, Charles will be bringing us through a number of itemization and crafting changes you're going to see when Season 4 goes live. I want to also be very clear that the changes we're talking about today are all going to be on the Eternal Realm and on the Seasonal Realm. We're not actually talking about the season specifically today. We're really talking about this massive item update and these other updates been happening kind of in parallel to season development.
Dude, I bet it's going to delayed even more. They're not going to be ready on May 14th.
Next, I'll be guiding us through some of the new endgame content that we're going to be implementing and integrating into the Season 4 release. And then Adam Jackson is going to be coming on to talk about a lot of the live class updates making across the various mechanics in the game. So there's a lot to look forward to. Let's go ahead and just, I guess, dive right in. Charles, if you don't mind taking us away.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start talking about itemization.
All right, let's go.
When we think about the itemization updates, I think it's really helpful to frame this conversation around some of the goals that we have for the itemization update. So our number 1 main goal here is to focus on quality of items over quantity of items.
That's good.
So one of the persistent points of feedback that we've gotten since we've launched Diablo 4 last year was that a lot of the items that you find in dungeons and throughout the game, you end up just sifting through a lot of items, searching through your inventory, and reading a lot of lines of text.
Yeah, which are all garbage.
A lot of the items just end up being junk for you. And that was never really, it never really felt great. And so with this update, that's been our number 1 goal is to focus on making sure that when we do give you items, they're high quality items, they're much more likely to be useful for your build, rather than just flooding you with endless streams of often...
They just remove affixes.
The second goal we have here is that the best items in the game, the really pinnacle ones that you get at the end game, they have a journey associated with them. As I said before, you were kind of sifting through your inventory and looking for these items, but once you found it, once you found that perfect item, you were pretty much done. It was basically a complete item, and you're already done with the item. You've completed it. We think that the game is a lot more engaging when you have a bit of a journey, an investment.
Yeah, obviously.
Time, crafting materials, and you really get to customize and make items your own, and make it feel like this is for me and my build and my character.
Yeah, and feel that power progression too. It's so critical to the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And the third goal that we have here is to focus on moments of surprise and delight in the itemization chase.
Surprise and delight.
This leads to moments of, hey, I found the item. You get really excited about it. And you just, you have these infrequent moments. It's not going to be all the time, but when you do find it, you're going to know it, you're going to feel it, you're going to be really excited about what just dropped. So with that, we have a number of topics within the itemization update. So the overview here is that we've got updates to existing systems, such as base items updates. We've got a few additional updates that are kind of adjacent to the itemization
greater
system.
affixes.
We've got some updates to Codex of Power, which we sort of alluded to earlier, and I think those are going to be some really
They looked at last epoch. They called it greater affixes.
We also have some new systems being introduced here. We've got tempering, which is going to be a new customization system. Greater affixes, which help to provide some chase in the end game. These are going to be some of those powerful items, ones that have greater affixes. And then once you do reach that end game with great gear, you're going to be able to masterwork it to really unlock its full potential and upgrade it to the best possible version that it can be. So let's hop into some of the base item updates. So this is where we're going to focus on making a smaller pool of affixes that are more relevant and more potent for your specific build. So as I kind of mentioned earlier in the goals section, a lot of the affixes and stats that appeared on items, they were often very conditional, right? You had like damage while berserking or damage to close enemies or things that were hyper specific and ultimately just were kind of meaningless in a lot of ways. They blended together.
You're welcome.
Really focus in this rework, we're focusing on reducing that pool of affixes to be more general. They're more applicable to a lot of builds. They're not going to be this hyper-specific conditional.
They remove some affixes, so somebody goes in the database and deletes some lines.
Here, we've got ranks of a single core skill. Sometimes on gear, you would find items that have ranks of upheaval, ranks of whirlwind, and ranks of double swing, all on the same item. And almost no build wants all three of those things at once. So we've made it so that, hey, only one of these can appear.
What if I want to have two, dude?
The subset of items that you find much more likely to be relevant.
Wait, what if I want to do ice shards and frozen orb?
Potent, we're looking at things like in World
What
Tier
if I
3,
want to do chain lightning fireball?
Items are going to appear. And then once you get into World Tier 4, only Ancestral, only those most powerful.
Like I get removing like the 3 of them, but 2 core skills on gloves actually make sense for a lot of builds. And they removed that basically.
Because hey, I'm in World Tier 4, I should be getting the best items now.
It's the same,
we also did a
less
pass
reading,
on the
correct?
Values to make sure they're a bit punchier. That you could feel it when you really equip an item.
Come on!
Just,
as if you feel it if you equip an item.
In
that's
the
like
past, you might get an item that said plus 2% critical strike chance, and honestly, it was hard to ever notice that, or like plus 5% damage or something like that. And those really small values were just hard to ever notice when you're swapping it, and it never felt like you got to upgrade your gear.
So let's get 50% crit.
At some examples here. So the other update is that we are reducing the total number of affixes on gear that initially drops.
Okay.
So legendary items used to drop with 4 affixes, 4 lines of stats. That's going down to 3. And then rare items, the yellow items, used to have up to 4, and now they'll just go down to 2.
Okay.
And so the goal here, once again, is to really focus on the quality of the affixes that appear on the gear, rather than just the pure quantity.
Rare items have 2 stats? That's a magic item. A magic item has 2 stats in every ARPG on the world.
Tempering systems. You are going to get more affixes, but the base item is going to start with a little bit less, just so we have room to grow.
One of the changes that we're making
in response
to this also.
Why not just replace one affix?
Now, like rare items are the items that players are using to trade in situations where you find like a really, really powerful template item. So you get a max roll helmet.
Why does a rare item have like 2?
Like these are still really
I don't get
important
it.
for players. So as part of this change, we are going to
Rare
open up
item
trading to
with
allow
2
legendary
affixes?
items and unique items to also be tradable in the starting in Season 4.
So
This is a big change.
I
for
kind
us.
of like this one, by the
Now,
way.
One distinction here to keep people on, to let people keep this in mind is
Legendary
that
items
crafting on either of these items,
with
whether you're
3,
using tempering or masterworking
but
or anything
more
else later on down
powerful.
the road.
That's a
these
good
things
thing.
Like enchanting does today, these make these items.
That is a stupid
account
thing
bound.
with the
You
rare
can't
items.
trade them once you get them, and after you've done some crafting on them. So we think this does a great job of making sure that the trade economy is still interesting, and that when you're looking for a specific item or an item is dropped for you that a friend can
No,
use,
it's not the same
it's going to be
thing.
a lot easier for you to go and hand those things around now.
They will allow to
Yeah,
put the
absolutely,
affix
and
on later
that's-
by crafting.
By the way, I'm gonna know. Adam Jackson.
Adam Jackson snuck in
Sorry,
here. Yes.
trading is a big deal. Very important. I'm okay
Very
with taking
important.
that out.
Literally appeared for trading. Yeah.
He appeared for trading.
Yeah.
Trading fairy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important note, and I know a lot of people, might have saw this and thought, oh, rare items are now, how can I trade? But now you can still be trading these legendary items that you find if they're useful for you, or you think they might be useful for a friend.
Oh, and also, I should say also, uber unique items are not going to be tradable.
Oh wait, legendaries are tradable?
Yeah, everything is not.
That's
uber unique.
good.
It's
And
not-
uber unique, yeah. Those are the most powerful items, and if you want those, you're gonna have to go and find them yourself.
I mean, I
Those
hate
are
trading,
the most
but
powerful
you know,
items in the game.
that's a good thing, though.
All right, so let's take a look at a closer example here. So we've got, kind of on the left, a before. This is a Boned Wand of Serration. This was before our update. This is what you could currently get on live. And you can see how it's got, plus intelligence,
Like,
vulnerable damage.
if you look at
damage
this,
to shadow damage over
it's
time
exactly the
affecting
same like
enemies.
before.
That is a mouthful.
Like,
Same
literally
with
the
lucky
item
hit,
does exactly
chance
the
to
same.
Execute injured non-elites. These are the really hyper-specific affixes that we're talking about.
Like, look, let me pause this, right? So this one does 4% damage, this one does 8% damage, this one does 50% additive damage, this one used to have 50% additive damage before with just 3 affixes. So this item is literally the same, like no difference there.
Really bloat items, it takes a while to parse this. Like, you just can't at a glance tell, hey, is this even good for me?
Yeah, reading through a number of conditional additive damage modifiers is like when you're like item to item, it's just very, it is taxing.
Especially when you really fill up your inventory with 30 plus of these items, trying to sort through them all at once when you just really want to get back into the action, right? You want to get back into fighting demons. So after this itemization update in the after section here, we have got a similar item.
I mean, this is
It
what I'm
has
saying is, like,
intelligence, it
revert
has
affixes
plus
to be
damage
more
that
simple, like
applies to
elemental
all of your
damage, physical
and
damage,
it's
dot
not,
crit damage.
hyper-specific.
Just make them
And we
simple,
still
right?
do get you give you a larger
So-
bonus if you're hitting vulnerable enemies with this. And
Can
it's
you get an item now that gives you like int, dex, and strength on it?
no, in fact, because this wand just has intelligence on it, it is just the main stat for your class. So if you are a sorcerer, you're only going to find intelligence on items. If you're a barb, you're only going to find strength, and
What's
so
that
on.
question?
You can
Everybody
still
knows
find all
that.
stat, right?
Yes.
all stat
Yeah,
stuff
you still have all stat, but no more you're going to find, oh, I got
So-
intellect on my barbarian.
So basically,
That's
now
just
you have to
basically
have
completely
int
dead
all
stats, right?
stats and 1 damage, right? So it's exactly the same than before,
All right,
but you
so
used
let's
to
take
have
a-
main
talk
stat
about
all
some of the
stats and 2
other additional
damages.
updates
So
that
literally
are
no
kind of
change
adjacent
there.
to the main itemization updates. Legendary item drops from monsters that are level 95 or higher are always going to be.
All right. So everything is
item
max
power
level. That's a
925. That is
that's
the
a loss.
highest item power in the game. And once you're
I
really
don't like
facing
that.
the toughest monsters in the game, we want to make sure that you're constantly getting the best possible items. This really comes back to our idea of quality over quantity. Once
don't like
you're at
that.
this
That
point of the
removes
game,
progression.
You don't really care
That's
about
exactly
anything
the
that
wrong
isn't
direction.
925,
It
so
removes
why are we
progression.
dropping that for you, right?
We have
You're gonna be
everything-
kind of
it's still
graduating
everything
out of
max,
caring
like-
about item power because you just know that everything I'm getting is
It's
the
stupid.
maximum item power.
I hate this.
Next, we've done a pass to update our gems. They are a little bit simpler. Some of the gems
That's what I
used to
said.
have,
Give me
once
more
again,
gems,
some
right?
Very conditional things like critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies was like 1 stat on
Look,
1
do
gem.
something to useless
So we kind of
offensive
simplified
gems.
it. So we now just have bonus critical strike damage or bonus vulnerable damage. We've also added some updates to have core stats on them. So some of the gems will have strength, some will have dex, and so on. And they'll have a little bit of a longer crafting tail. They're a bit more powerful at the top end, but they do require a bit more investment to
That's
really
a good
unlock that
thing.
highest power
It's
level.
not much, but it's good.
And once you have all the gems that you want, excess gems will now sell for quite a bit more gold. So that way you're not really going to waste once you have kind of found those best gems. Additionally, we've done a pass on the salvage, crafting, and rewards have all been retuned for this new world where we're dropping less
No, it's
items
so
than
terrible.
before. Once again,
I hate
we're
this.
focusing on you have less time sorting through your inventory. and more time getting back in the action,
Yeah.
more time slaying enemies
True
to
story.
find those items.
Yeah, there's much less cruft in this version of the feature, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not walking out of a nightmare dungeon with 25 items. You
No.
have to go and deal with
Like
it,
level
figure out that.
95
Right.
is what,
But
like
the ones that you do have are much more likely to
Nightmare
be
Dungeon
relevant
60
and
or
useful
something
to
like
you
that?
when you do find them. Additionally, we've item rerolling. The
What is
enchanting
level
system at
95?
The occultist. We know this has been. It has like a scaling gold cost currently, and that just keeps on ramping up. If you want to keep fishing for that perfect affix, it could cost millions upon millions upon millions of gold. We put a cap on that. We don't think it's really healthy to have that.
Right, so
actually
level
scale infinitely. It
59
also
is
gets, a
tier
little high, but
41.
it's not going to go to infinity.
that's gotta be like
Taking
Oh
a
my
pass on
fucking
the materials,
God.
the crafting materials,
Like,
things
literally,
ore and herbs,
max
and some of the
gear
other
in
crafting
Nightmare
materials in the game. And a
41,
lot
I
of the
can do
ones,
that
we had some
directly with level
variety of,
60.
like, common herbs, so that were found in different zones, and there was some nice flavor there, but ultimately they didn't really provide much compelling gameplay. So we've
Wow,
consolidated
that's like
all
such a
of,
big
the
W,
common,
such a big
crafting
L here.
materials into just a single type.
There's my
just,
spreadsheet.
just basically common herbs, and then there are still some rare ones to find. To craft the most powerful elixirs
That's
and so on.
Nightmare 41.
But we've
Oh my
simplified
fucking
that
God.
system so your collection is a little bit easier and more streamlined.
Yeah, we also removed things like there's like a lot of monster parts like Pale Tongue and things like that are also have been removed. As
Wow,
part
this
of
is so
tutorials.
terrible.
To make it a lot easier to craft
That even
elixirs
removes
in
more
this
gear
world.
progression from the
And you have
game.
to scroll through that tab so long to see
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what material you want to
Yeah.
craft with. Yeah.
Especially when they ultimately just fed towards that same goal. And then the final update we've got is updates to the Forgotten Souls, right? So the late game crafting material that you use for a lot of the enchanting or other crafting systems.
Wow, where I grew up from
we're making them a
Whispers,
little
because
more
I want to make
accessible.
Whispers all
They'll
day.
Come from Whispers
Who
and gold
cares?
caches, and they can also rarely drop globally from any elite in the game. And this is a really cool moment that you kind of have this jackpot moment. It's pretty rare when you kill
Jackpot
elites,
moment,
But there's
yeah.
a moment where you just
Jackpot,
get like this explosion
Forgotten
of
Soul.
loot, and it spits out a
Wow,
ton
this
of
is
the
so
Forgotten
bad.
Souls or other loot or other crafting materials, and that's a really exciting moment when you encounter it in game. It's pretty rare, but you
It's
kind of
pretty rare, like.
when that does happen.
And for Forgotten Souls, that can happen outside of Helltide, right?
Oh yeah, that can happen on literally any elite in the game.
Yep.
Also, we're looking at updating our uniques. So unique
Uber
items
uniques
are,
can drop from
these
monster
really
level
build-defining,
55.
Flashy, unique items, right? They are very powerful. Currently, they're locked behind just World Tier 3 and onward.
Oh my
They're really late
God.
game items. And we thought that to really get you into the fun faster, to get your build online, we've made it so that many of our uniques in the game can now start dropping in World Tiers 1 and 2. So you can start getting them earlier on in the experience and really get your build going much quicker. And then once you do get into World Tier 3, then all of the uniques in the game have the potential to start dropping.
This is really terrible.
Including Uber uniques.
This is
specifically
exactly
those
the wrong
very late game
direction.
Chase items. There is a chance that monsters starting at level 55 drop these Uber uniques. It's a pretty small chance. It's very rare, but it's one of those moments that you're going to find. If you're really lucky, you might find a Harlequin's Crest.
Yeah, you'll
at
remember
level
that.
55.
You'll remember that playthrough.
Yeah, they're
Oh, you
fantastic if
definitely
you
will, right?
even want to
And
play
of
less,
course
right?
they'll
The less you want to play, the better these
our
changes
goals
are.
of the itemization update in general is that like at any time something really exciting can happen, right? That's the main impetus for doing this is that even early on in the game you can get the main thing that you're looking for. It's going to be very rare, not very common, but it's possible.
Why would you get
Even some of
max
our
level
other
gear
updates
if you're
something
like
we can
level
explain is kind of
60?
going along
That
vein.
doesn't make any
Absolutely,
sense
yeah.
whatsoever.
We want you to have the chance to really have that high roll moment, that really exciting moment when you find that awesome loot.
Yeah.
That covers the additional updates. We've got to
Wait,
talk
that's
about
it?
the Codex of Power.
That's
right?
it?
So the Codex of Power is a system that has
Okay.
been in the game since launch, and
wow.
we're making a big update here, where now all legendary aspects in the game will start appearing in the Codex of Power. Every single one. Previously, it was just a small subset. And I believe we even have some in-game footage that we can talk and go through an example of what
let's
this
see.
looks like.
Yeah, we'll jump over to it. We have behind the scenes. We actually have Ruben, aka Bloodshed, former content creator, now part of the Blizzard team here on
Let's see.
Diablo. He's actually driving us through
Upgrades
our
and
builds here,
aspect.
but he will
Oh,
be,
thank God.
driving
At least
through
they
all
get
our
that
little
right.
demos that we have today. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so you can see in our inventory right now, we've got Edge Master's Siege Bow. And this has a little icon on it in the upper right in your inventory there. And that indicates that if you salvage this legendary, it will upgrade an aspect in the Codex of Power.
Chinese mobile
when you
market is
salvage
much
it.
better
That's
than
right.
this.
So you no longer need to go to the occultist to extract aspects in any
Correct.
way, because aspect crystals are no longer a thing in this new version of the Codex of Power.
Yeah, aspect crystals are gone. It's just when you salvage the legendary, it will upgrade it. So we salvage it, we can see that
mean,
Edgemaster's aspect
it was
has been upgraded
expected.
in the Codex of Power.
That should
So we go to
have
our
been in
Codex
the
of
game
Power,
from
and
day
let's go take a
one.
look. So we've
Okay.
got Edgemaster's aspect here.
But it's a good thing.
That skills deal up to 6% increased damage based on your available resource when cast. So that is
That's
the,
what I said. It's a quality of life change,
kind of
but
legendary
it
rank
is
of the
an
one that we
like
just
it is an
salvaged.
S
Now
tier
this says 6%
change.
Here, in game it was 12% because it was.
It
on
is a good
two-handed
change, but
bow,
it's just
and
quality
that
of
doubles
life,
the
right? It
range.
doesn't make the game better.
But you can see it's not a minimum roll. Right now on live Diablo 4, it's always just a minimum roll, and so once you find something better, a better aspect.
My only complaint
crystal,
on it is that
the
this
codex is
hasn't
kind of
been in
irrelevant.
from day
now
one.
The codex will continue being relevant because every time you find a higher roll of it, it's going to upgrade your codex, and you can continually re-imprint this legendary power onto any gear that you find going forward.
That's right. So if Ruben finds a 10% roll, on something else, then that is now going
But
to
that's
go
what I'm
ahead
saying.
and
That is
salvage
something
item
good, but
down.
it's just quality of
That
life.
10% version is now going to
Right?
replace the 6% version
So-
he has right now. And that's the new version that you have. So when we're talking about upgrading,
It's
what
good to
we're
have
doing
it,
is, like, as you find the
but
better
it's
versions
nothing
of these
major.
aspects,
It's not
they replace
game
the
breaking.
older ones. Now,
It's
every
just
time
quality
you
of
decide
life.
You want to imprint out of the
Just
Codex of
put it
Power,
into
That's
perspective.
going to be the version that you get from that point forward.
So if you find a max roll the first time, are you just super lucky? You have it forever?
You are super lucky, and you would have that forever. Yes, you can continue to re-imprint it. However, the ranks of legendaries, you won't be able to find a max roll of these legendaries in World Tiers 1 and 2 when you're just starting out your journey.
Oh, that's
we have
so terrible.
extended the range, so a lot of legendaries used to say, hypothetically, if a legendary rolled between 20% and 30%, now we've extended that range from 20 to 35%. But those like 30 to 35%, the highest range, the most powerful versions, those are only going to be accessible in World Tier 4. In the later games. So this
Well, that's
does
not
give
a
you
big
bit
deal,
more
right?
progression. So
Who cares?
you can find it early and you can upgrade it, but then you're going to find even better versions as you progress through the world tiers.
And if we actually, can we go back to the build really quickly? Because, Ruben, if you can pull
Bring up
up
that
the
Codex
Codex of
again.
Power really quickly.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
long
for sure,
overdue,
yeah.
this
Yeah.
change,
because
right?
One big thing is like I know we glazed over this really quickly, but there are filters, ways of searching through everything, which is really nice. And then, of course, on the icons as well, I think people are probably seeing these numbers associated. I know it's something that is changed, obviously, with this new Codex of Power, where it's showcasing.
Well, let's wait for the crafting. The itemization changes are not very meaningful.
Fog
So
right
let's
there,
wait for the
which is
crafting here.
already
That's going to be
showcasing, hey, you have it
important.
completely maxed at 16 out of 16.
If
And
they
of
just,
course, there's
you know,
different
you can
ranks
just
as
add
you're-
an
you're
affix
kind
by
of, like,
crafting, and that's going to
leveling
be
up
it.
throughout, the
And then you
Codex
can make it a
Power,
little
finding
stronger. I don't
Yeah.
think there's going to be
I
anything.
really love that gold border to really indicate that, hey, you found the best version, you've kind of completed this. And some of them, you kind of cheat on it, right? Things that only have one rank. As soon as you unlock it, you get the best version.
Yeah, that's an example of one that you could max out in World Tier 1.
You probably could, right? But most of them have now, up to 16 ranks is kind of our standard, for the most part. And those highest ranks are just going to be in the later world tiers.
And for a lot of these aspects, too, when we went to 16 ranks on these, we actually extended the value, the power of these, and potency of
Upwards.
these aspects
Yes.
upwards, right? We didn't water it down. We actually extended it up.
Yeah, for the most part, these have increased in power at the highest level, just to make them really rewarding in World Tier 4 when you find them.
And I'm sure there's people asking specifically about, hey,
It's
is
funny,
this a
they
seasonal
think
thing?
it's
Is
like
this
an
eternal
accomplishment to
thing?
reach World Tier 4.
This
like,
is everywhere
Yes.
forever. This is the new world.
This is the new
This is
world.
that's right. All the updates we're talking about today,
Correct.
once again, are for the Eternal Realm and for the Seasonal Realm. These are not seasonal updates only.
Yeah, they're coming with Season 4, but they are applying to the whole game.
Yeah.
And
It was
and
alright.
I do want to note, like, Codex of Power with
Right.
seasonal characters, of course, will end up change like every single time
It
there's
does
a new
reset.
season.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
does
the
will
same
have
way
to-
that it does today.
But
yeah.
but eternal characters, will just have
You
it
can
forever.
actually fill it out
eternally.
forever,
Yes.
Eternally, of
course.
There you go.
All right, so that was a ton on the systems that already exist in the game, right? The base item affixes, the other updates, and Codex of Power. But there's also new systems coming.
We're not done.
Okay,
with
now
that.
it gets interesting.
That was updates to
Halfway
existing
done.
things, but
Yeah,
we have
let's
got
go.
a lot of new stuff. So let's talk about tempering. Tempering is a
Right.
new crafting system
That's
that
what I
will allow you
suspected.
to add
Just add an
really
affix.
cool new affixes to your items. And so I really just want to highlight that this is not just taking those old really conditional nitty-gritty aspects or affixes. This also includes a lot of really new, exciting affixes as well that we'll showcase a bit later. Things like
They're probably
chance
all
to
gonna
cast
be
bonus
bugged and not
projectiles,
working.
Increased effect size of your skills, and other ways of talking directly to individual skills. A lot of this lives in tempering, and so this way you can really customize your character, specifically to your
notice
build
something?
and the skills that you're using and the way you want to play.
This is my runes
So you might be
here.
asking, well, how do we temper? We've got tempering manuals. So these are manuals that are going to drop from most content in the game. This isn't something you need to go target farm. You're just going to find these as you're playing. And these manuals are going to be a list of possible affixes that are kind of themed to individual builds. So if you are a bone necro, for instance,
Tempering durability, they just stole it from last
bone
epoch.
necro might have things specifically
It's
for bone
crafting
spear and
potential,
bone
it's
splinters
exactly the
and bone
same.
spirit. When you do the tempering,
That's so funny.
which is done at the blacksmith, it will attach a random one of the affixes from that manual onto the item that you're tempering.
Oh my god, the
And
random
if you
one.
don't get the exact one
You're
that you
kidding.
want, or you don't get the roll that you want, you can re-roll these affixes up to the item's tempering durability. Now, this is a lot without an example, so I think we've got an example where we can just
Wait, what?
Yeah,
It's
let's
a
show
random
off
one?
what it looks
right?
like.
Yeah, so here's some screenshot examples
You gotta be
of
kidding
the
me.
actual recipes that appear. So on the left, we've
What?
got the manual of
Why?
natural motion. This is a generic
Why
recipe that
random?
really applies to any class. It's got a variety of movement speed
What's the
options on
fucking
it. So you've
point?
got, you might just attach movement speed to your gear. Maybe you get a higher value of movement speed, but only after you
Oh
kill
my
a
god.
elite.
Look at this.
We have the option to reduce your evade cooldown or give you mobility.
Where do we have it?
Skill
A
cooldown
somewhat
reduction.
useless
We've tagged a lot
crafting
of skills
system,
in the
maybe
game with
allowing to craft
mobility
a rare with
tags
one
when, things
selectable
like
plus 3
teleport
random
or charge.
affixes.
And
Why
then on the right, we've
random?
got one that is
Why?
more specific to necromancers, because this is the bone necro one that I mentioned before. So we've got a chance for bone splinter projectiles to cast twice, chance for bone spear projectiles to cast twice, increase the size of your bone spirit
So that's
explosion,
basically
or
the
increase
skill
the
runes,
duration of
which I
your
was
bone
talking
storm.
about,
So
which they're probably going to
if you're a
add.
bone necro, one of these is probably going to
why
be pretty
random?
relevant to you.
That's so
will be
stupid.
really, a cool way of customizing your character and your skills.
I don't get it.
So here's an example of the UI. So on the left, we've got this Choker of Ancestral Charge, one of my favorite legendaries, currently on Season 3. And so it's got the relatively simpler affixes. It's got just max life, damage, and critical strike chance. And we go to the blacksmith, we put it into the menu here, and we can see that there are kind of 6 categories, with 5 of them being highlighted.
Okay.
These categories are the categories of recipes. So each recipe corresponds to one of these categories. And
So it's the same
on
than
any notes, you
legendary
can put anything
aspects.
except the weapons category. So that's why offensive, defensive, utility, mobility,
Basically.
and resource are all highlighted.
It's
here.
just a different name for a
And,
second
Once
legendary.
we go through this, we
aspect.
can do this twice because
Which gets applied
most
randomly.
items can only be tempered once. You can get just one affix on them. But ancestral items, these really late game World Tier 4 items, can be tempered twice from 2 separate categories. So you can't put, say, 2 defensive ones on there. You're going to
I like how he says ancestral items, those very late game items. I like how he says that, and I think he really means that.
diversify. And in this case, we've got charge cooldown reduction added on the right. And we've also got some bonus damage while berserking. So we've got an offensive one here, and then we've got a utility
even last
one that
epoch, it's
gives us
worse.
the cooldown reduction.
Because it's random.
Do we have a live example of this, of going through this actual flow, so we can kind of show you what this ends up looking like?
Yep. Once again, yep. That's right there.
Look.
Points
Points
at the blacksmith.
Yes. So in here we've got our bow of branching volleys. We can put in here.
I mean, it's
Because this
better
is a
than
weapon,
nothing, but
we
why
can attach,
random? Just
ones
let
from
me
the
pick.
offensive category. And so here's all the examples. We've got 5 different recipes that we've unlocked here, depending on how we want to build our character. So if we want to do, say, marksman skills,
I already saw,
to
like,
put on here,
damage
we
to
can do
trapped
marksman
enemies.
Finesse, and this will give us either bonus marksman damage. Why don't we just temper it and see what it looks like? So we get this.
It doesn't make
flashy
sense.
animation that
Why
comes in,
random?
and we get to
It's-
see. Hey, we added 29%
You
marksman
called it.
damage.
Wow, I got 30%
Right.
damage.
Quite
What a
nice, yeah.
great...
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Not scripted, by the way.
Okay, wait, so he's saying, wait, that's awesome. So I just did this tempering, and I got a random 30% damage buff, which is literally going to be, what, like 2% extra damage? Like, so amazing.
Way.
definitely not scripted. So yeah,
Actually, it wasn't. but
It actually was. You were actually plugging, but
You're at the in the grips of RNG.
Yeah.
One thing I want to call out also while we're looking at this is that so we are in the season 4 update, or this PTR update that we're talking about right now. This is our first PTR update. There's a lot of changes we have going in, and there's some things that are going to be are kind of in the middle of being polished now, or kind of getting wrapped up for some things in dev. There's going to be some things that players will see on the PTR. They're going to feel like, oh, this is like not quite like what I expect, or there's like they might find bugs and things.
Yep.
That's kind of the nature of the PTR experience.
Yeah.
We want you to report those, like Adam called out a little bit earlier, and get your feedback on the experience.
yeah, that's actually a really good reminder, because I think a lot of people haven't experienced PTR, especially if you're like kind of new to Diablo and you do jump.
I mean,
in.
it depends on those
PTRs will
affixes,
have bugs.
right?
It is
Um,
an early look at the build.
To me, it just sounds like
So
adding
there
another
will be
legendary
bugs,
affix
polished
basically
things
on
that
them.
won't be incorporated.
I guess it
So,
depends
yes,
on how
provide
these
feedback on all
affixes
those things
actually
so that
play
we can
out.
actually,
But
hear those and
it doesn't
make
look
changes
like
for those.
But if we throw back to Ruben real quick, the thing I
Something
wanted to point out was like when the
very
master-
major.
when the tempering process went through. It said you got 28% for the that marksman damage, but the item itself got a slightly different number. There's just a bug that we've identified that we're in the middle of fixing right now.
Right, that's just a display bug, but this is one of the things that we're working on, we're aware of, and going to polish up, because that's the nature of game development.
Just for the
right?
eagle-eyed among the viewers.
Yes.
I mean, look, that's
this is
just
the thing.
flat damage. Nobody cares about
All right,
that
so,
craft.
a few other things to call out here. Let's actually close this menu and then take a look at when it's in there. We can talk about tempering durability a little bit. So you can see when this is in here, we've got tempered affixes, 1 out of 2. Because this is an ancestral item, you can temper it twice from 2 different categories. So you're going to be able to put 1 weapon and 1 offensive on there. And then there's
I mean,
this
they might
tempering
temper like
durability
multi-shot and stuff
remaining.
like that.
So
So
this is how many times you can re-roll the tempered affixes. The first ones that you attach should not be consuming tempering durability. I think this one might have one of those bugs where it did consume it, but ultimately,
I
this
like
is
how
gonna
they
be the
show
number of
footage with
times
bugs
you can
already.
re-roll.
Yeah, we're actually going to update the string. I think it's going to literally be called tempering re-rolls.
Re-roll.
Yeah,
Okay.
to make it really, really clear. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the kind of things that we're actively working on, and we love your feedback on to make sure that we can get this right and really.
I hope they
communicate
just
the way
remove
the
the
system
random.
works.
Like,
So
then it
we've
would be
attached an
alright.
offensive,
Like, I have no
affix
problems
onto
with
this.
that
Let's take a
system.
look at some of the weapon ones that we can attach on.
Alright, look.
So here we've got ones that not great. Well,
Live build.
Yeah,
live
live
build
build.
indeed.
Let's go.
Well, so we can talk through what would have happened there.
Yeah.
Right, so when you attach the weapon category, those are often the ones that are the more, I would say, more
This is
interesting, right?
great.
The bonus projectiles, the bonus effect size.
Yeah, that was the
of course it crashes.
Create different, like multiple bone splinters or
Yes.
twice. Right?
Oh, this
Yeah,
is like so
yeah, that's it, in the
amazing.
weapon
Like, this is
category.
comedy.
So there we would attach one of those. Maybe we'd get a chance for rapid fire projectiles to fire an extra time. And then when we do that, maybe, we actually want to play a penetrating shot build, right? Maybe rapid fire is not that great. We could consume one of the tempering durabilities to re-roll that and try to get that bonus rapid fire projectile ones that we want.
At least people now believe it's live.
People still think we weren't doing it live.
Looking at it.
Oh my God.
I know we're getting the build back up here and everything, but
There's a lot of really cool new affixes in general.
He's got to
inside
reboot
the
the
tempering
computer.
system. Like I know that, like I've been playing.
Only
a
works
lot
one
of
time,
Season
the tempering,
4,
then you have to
like,
restart.
on our dev build. And I'm playing a barbarian right now. And I've been playing a lot with Dust Devils, which I know we'll talk maybe a little bit more about
we're
later.
gonna talk about
I love
Dust
me
Devils.
some
I
Dust
love
Devils.
Dust
But there's like opportunities to like spawn, like instead of spawning one Dust Devil, you'll spawn multiple Dust Devils. There's Dust Devil size. There's a lot of really and duration. Like there's a lot of really neat new things to play with to build upon other like playstyles, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the goal of tempering is customization. And
I mean,
really
to me, it's
cool
just
new
adding
ways
like
of
another
playing
random
your character.
modifier on an
It's not
item,
just
which is not
plus
bad,
damage.
like in the
There
first
is
place,
still
right?
some
It's nice
bonus
to add
damage as
new
you
modifiers
still need to in
if
order
they are
to
good.
actually do
If
damage.
it's just going to be
But there's a
flat
lot of ways
damage,
you can customize
who
your
cares,
skills
right?
And make it really your own.
It's not going to change
Right now,
anything.
you can temper legendary items
correct.
and rare items, but you can't temper unique items.
Correct.
Why not?
Unique items, what you see is what you get, right? They drop still with the 4 affixes for the most part. Those are going to be unchanged. You won't be able to temper onto them
With tempering, yeah.
with tempering, right?
And then we show the tempering durability,
Yeah.
as part or tempering rerolls in this case. So the idea here is that like when the player has you're not happy with the affix you've got, you've kind of rerolled through all of your options, At the end of that process, you simply can't temper any longer on that item. There's not a way to reset that item back down.
Yeah.
You know, one of the goals that we have for ourselves.
I mean, it's just
in terms of,
exactly
trying
the
to,
same than
have
in Last
a
Epoch,
higher
but
quality
it's
drops in
random.
general, is to make it so it's a little
Like,
bit easier.
they took the
and
same
also
system, but made it a
like,
little
you know,
worse.
It's easy
Like, for whatever reason.
925 capped items when you start to really deeply engage in features like this. Is you want to make it a little bit easier for you to go find some of those really good baseline templated items for you to start building on top of, as opposed to it having it be like, I need to find like 70 helmets in the hopes I find a max roll cooldown reduction.
Now you need to find 50, and then you're going to brick them all with tempering, and you're not going to have it in the end anyway.
Want to make it a little bit easier for you to find some of these things, between it being a lot easier to have drops that are relevant for you appear when you're doing various types of content, but also that if you're playing with friends, there's opportunities for you to maybe trade some things around at the same time.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about finding really strong base items to build off of. And I think that goes great into our next point where we talk about greater affixes.
So
greater
that's
affixes
from Last
are
Epoch.
affixes that appear in the late game. They are more powerful versions of
It's,
the normal affixes. So they come at a 1.5x
exactly the
multiplier
same.
on the affixes
I can't
max
believe
roll.
it.
So let's say a hypothetical affix might come between like 50 to 100 of a stat. If it rolls great,
You know, I'm going to make a bet now. They're not going to recolor that affix. It's going to have the same color than the other affixes. It's just going to have a higher roll, but it's not going to have a different color, and the item is not going to have a special icon or anything. Watch this.
then you actually get 150 of that stat instead. Instead of the roll, it always comes in at max. So it comes in at that 150 mark. These are really exciting drops when you get into the late game. They're going to be immediately obvious whenever they drop.
I mean,
on the
that's a good
ground. They're gonna
system,
have a
though.
little,
Like, it
change
creates
to
more
the UI,
rarity
so
in
you can
items,
see it
so
right
I like
away and
that,
you know, hey, that
technically.
one has greater affixes on it. And that's going to be ones that you're really going to want to pick up and make sure that you take a look at.
But you
and
have
then
to see
really
them.
wanna build off of
You have to,
because
like,
they're some of
identify
the
them.
strongest affixes in the game.
They have to be
We've got an
highlighted.
example here. And one other note, these, as I mentioned, they're late game. They only appear on Ancestral Legendary items and Ancestral Uniques that are dropping in World Tier 4.
Okay, well, I guess they
I
made
think
the
we can
little
zoom in on
point red.
the top one here.
So that's
where we
good, at
can
least.
See we've got a little, like some Roman numerals at the end of it, 2. That indicates that this pair of gloves has 2 greater affixes on it. And when you
That's a
actually go and
good
pick it up,
thing.
we can take a look at the tooltip of the
Now
of
a
the
loot
item itself,
filter, and I will
we
be
can see that
happy.
intelligence here is highlighted, and so is critical strike damage. And these roll at the max roll, and I think we've got a comparison.
Oh, they all roll max roll as well. Okay, I like that change,
a standard
actually.
version. So on the left is
pretty cool.
A non-greater version of a dagger. You've got say.
I mean, it basically makes all the items which are not, like, empowered useless, right? So basically it's going to remove the pool of items because you don't have to look at the shit on the ground which doesn't have, like, the 1 or 2 at the end. You don't even have to pick it up, right? So you only pick up the rare items now which have, like, this little glow effect. And that is actually, it's technically a loot filter, right? It's just a terrible version of it.
74 dexterity, and maybe it rolled between.
So I like
70
that
and
change,
84.
actually.
But on the right, we've got a greater version of dexterity, and that's going to always give you 126, which is 1.5 times the 84. Same with the critical
That's
strike
an
damage
S
down
tier,
at the
dude.
bottom. So
That's
if you
an
find
S
the
tier.
dagger on the right, that's a really good one. I mean, not only do you have 2 greater affixes, you also max roll the attack speed in between. That is a great base item to start building through the tempering system on. Thing we've got, the next topic to talk about is masterworking. Masterworking is a late game
That's a good
crafting
thing.
system that we're going to use to upgrade the items. So once you kind of find a really good base item, maybe it has some greater affixes on it, and then you
No, they're gonna be
tempered all
rare.
the affixes that you want. You know, hey, you
It's a
found
good thing.
The
I
exact
like that.
affixes that are specific to you.
It's the same like in Last Epoch. I like it there.
Now
So I like it here.
you're really pushing into that late game content. It's time to start masterworking. And masterworking has 12 ranks where you can upgrade the current
That's good. I only
affixes
picked the
on
items
here.
which
So
are
this
good.
isn't going to
I like
change
that.
any of the affixes like enchanting or like tempering does.
Right.
This is just going to take the current ones and then upgrade them through 12 ranks.
This is kind of like the old gear upgrade, right?
Similar, yes. However, both masterworking and tempering are replacing the old gear upgrade system.
That's also from
previous
Last
system,
Epoch.
You just kind of upgraded
You
the
can
item
upgrade the
power and the
affixes.
values went
They
up
literally
by a
took all
bit.
systems from Last
These two
Epoch.
systems replace that, and now you're going
That's
to be
so
able
funny.
to customize them and then masterwork them
It's
instead.
significantly more powerful on the back end of this
Absolutely.
as well after these things are done.
Yeah.
Compared to item upgrade, yeah.
Absolutely. So the 12 ranks of masterworking, as opposed to the 5 of the old system, most of the ranks are going to increase all of your affixes on the gear by a small amount. But then every 4 ranks, so rank 4, 8, and 12, are going to upgrade a single affix by a large amount.
And it's a random one again. Even more randomness.
Is rank 2 masterworking. You can see that right up there by the item power. It says masterworking 2 out of 12. Let's focus in on
Wait,
like
that's 10%.
Maximum life affix there.
Like
so on the
what?
left at rank 2, you see we've got 880 bonus maximum life.
It's exactly the
And so
same
we take
step.
we masterwork it up to rank 3, and
Oh
then
no,
that will upgrade
this is nothing.
that to 920
Okay.
maximum life. So a little bit of an improvement. But then once we hit rank 4, we actually get a much larger increase in maximum life. It goes from 920 all the way up to 1,120.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, but
While the other affixes on the gear stay static because they didn't roll randomly because we're only hitting 1. To Joe's point earlier about
I don't know if I like this. This is just even more randomness.
It's not final, as the watermark says.
I don't like the whole randomness.
The tempered affixes at the bottom, the golem active cooldown reduction and the bone critical strike damage, those also would be being upgraded and are eligible to have this this larger bonus. But in this particular screenshot example, those numbers didn't change, but they will change in the final, and there's a
Those
chance.
also get affected, yeah.
Yeah, they will be included just like all of the rest of them.
Again, I
But yeah,
didn't like
so
the random part
as
of
you go
it.
through you're gonna
Just
get
let me pick
3
the
of
affix.
these effects at rank 4, 8, and 12. And they
If
can
you
all
have a
the
really
same
good
one.
item and then
So
you
if
need
get
to,
really,
you
really
know,
lucky and
randomly
really needed
put
a
an
lot of
affix on
maximum
it,
life,
like
you
you have a
might
really good
get,
item, you have to
just a
temper the
ton of
affix on
maximum
it,
life
which
every
is
time
random,
that increases.
and then you have
Or it
to
could be on one of your tempered affixes. You could
roll
get
it
tons of
4
golem
times to
cooldown
the same,
reduction
which
if
is
that's the
even.
kind of build that you're
So
looking
the
for.
chances are like literally like super
And once you
minimal to
fully,
hit something with
masterwork an
that.
item, you, if it didn't really pan out the way you wanted to, the random rolls didn't quite go your way, you are able to reset it and try it again, but you will kind of lose all the materials that you've invested into it. But
Oh,
you
you
can,
can
try
reset
that
and
again.
try
It doesn't
again.
completely,
So it's a material dump.
Lock you out of it.
Right. So once
Okay.
you've got like a really great pair of
Okay.
gloves or whatever that you've
That's okay.
tempered at this point, you enchanted to get exactly the affix you wanted off it. Maybe you got some greater affixes on it in the first place when you started. Then you take that item into, assuming you got through all that process, you can take it into the
I can live
master
with that
feature,
actually.
and then you can kind of keep going at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get the opportunity to kind of hopefully crit exactly the affixes you're looking for.
Yeah, and if you do get
yeah,
that
it's
right,
stolen
you
from
find
last
something that's
epoch.
got critical strike
This
damage,
is so
and then you
funny.
hit all 3 times on it, super upgraded. That's going to be like one of the best items in the game that probably no one else has one exactly like that because you really needed to hit the right.
So here's the problem with that, right? So even if you have these items, like let's say you can make a ring with 15% crit chance or whatever, like even if you do that, it's not going to change anything in the game. The game still has no difficulty level and it doesn't even matter. Like, yes, you will progress through random content a little bit faster, but it's not going to change anything right there. Yes, you're going to have a little bit better gear. You're going to have a little bit more damage. But we don't care about damage. We care about skills. We care about customization. He's just talking about how we build better stat sticks on our gear and how to randomize that. And that actually is not very important.
Right one every time. That's going to be a really powerful item that is going to be very memorable when you get all that coming together. I think we've got an example here to really highlight all of these systems taken together. So on before, this was that boned one restoration that we talked about right at the beginning when we talked about paring down the
Right, see, that's just a bigger stat
more
stick.
simple intelligence,
Like-
damage, and vulnerable damage.
Yes,
And on the
obviously it's
right,
more
we can see it
powerful, but it's
after
just
it's
a bit
been
better stat
tempered.
stick.
So we've got bone spirit damage. We've got chance for a bone splinter projectiles to cast twice. And then we can see intelligence has been highlighted in blue. That means it's had 1 of the upgrades from masterworking, and the damage stat on here has been upgraded twice. That's why it's in yellow when we got up to masterworking 12. And you can see how we've taken this progression, this item progression, and on.
Put this into perspective, how they have no clue about their own game, right? So 160 intelligence, right? That is like pretty meaningful. And this is just 1 hit from the update, right? And then we have 44.9% damage, which is 2 hits from the update, which is literally just 20% more. So this is like a what? A 2% damage buff, which has critted 2 times. And this is a 6% damage buff, which just critted 1 time. So you can see like how these numbers don't. This should have like plus 250% damage or something like that, right? Like the bump from 23 to 44 is literally nothing. Like this is probably the worst roll you can get on this item.
So here, once you got it all the way up to masterworking 12, this is really kind of the pinnacle of what items can be in our new itemization world.
So what I want to highlight here is that, you know, the total
So basically, you would put intelligence and all stats on here, and you would just masterwork until you hit intelligence and all stats like 3 times, and then you have a good item. And all the other stats are meaningless, like they have been before. I'm not saying that it's a bad system, but these values do not make sense. The 44.9% damage is literally nothing. This has to be 200 or 300% for it to make sense.
Depth of what an item can do and the complexity. You can still make an item do a lot of different things, but on that before side, when you're looking for items that are dropping, that's all that you're going to parse through over there. It's just like 3 affixes. Did I get the ones I want? And you can just do that very quickly and parse through a lot of items that way. But you're going to be slowly, introducing that complexity over time to your items as you upgrade and masterwork them. So you're going to be building the items that you really want to be using.
I'm not disliking the system.
Absolutely. In terms of like
just the numbers
on this, I think it's fun to call out. Like, it is basically 5% upgrades to your affixes during the regular masterworking process, and then there's 3 randomly selected 25% upgrades to one of those affixes. So if you're very, very fortunate and you manage to triple up on a particular stat, you can do the math.
Yeah, I mean, so far I don't see why we would need it, because the game content is still way too easy and still the same.
You can go really hard and
you go really hard on CDR in this world, right?
I'm terrified.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I'm banking on having forking projectiles and stuff like that.
Projectiles, that's actually true. Yeah,
it's gonna be really sweet.
Yep.
Bone spears everywhere.
Absolutely.
You just said it.
But of course, you might be asking, okay, new items are great. Well, what am I going to do with all of these new items?
See?
Before we even bridge to me, okay, this is a really good bridge. So 2 things I want to call out. One, masterworking works on unique items.
Correct.
Yes. So some of those really, really cool affixes that can appear on unique items. Not the power of the unique item, but a lot of like the really specific.
That's
affixes.
Nice.
Those
at least
benefit from the masterworking process as well.
If you can crit really a unique stat.
So I think that there's something really, really.
I like
fun
that.
There. Also, you can make sure that when some of these unique items are dropping, they also can have greater affixes attached to them. So those same unique affixes that we're talking about, that is huge. Now you get an extra 50% value on top of that.
That's good.
You get 50% value on top of a unique item affix, and then on top of that you masterwork it. It can get really, really bonkers. So there's a good chase involved in this. But even allowing for player trading and everything else, there's still lots of really exciting stuff for players to find.
Yeah, and the other thing I've seen a little bit of this in chat as well, as a lot of people are going hey, when are we actually able to experience this?
PTR.
PTR. Well, first PTR, and also at the same time, this is something that does start immediately with Season 4 when it begins.
Yes.
This is all the items.
It starts immediately with Season 4, but we delay Season 4 by 1 month.
With the start of
That's comedy.
Because I know a lot of people were questioning because they're going well, we had heard Gauntlet in the past, and then Gauntlet actually started mid-season. The itemization changes, and all the changes you're hearing today will start at right at the beginning of Season 4, which is on May 14th. PTR.
I bet it's not going to be May 14th. I bet they're going to delay it.
Other things I also want to say doesn't fit.
I got one too.
Oh, do you? Oh no, you go first. You go first.
All right. I want to clarify something because I know it's going to be a lot of questions that people have on greater affixes.
Yes.
So greater affixes, the way that you get them is you can only get them from things that drop. So you're actually looking for that moment when you kill the mob, kill the enemy, the loot drops. That's the exciting moment that we're targeting. Enchanting is still going to exist. You can still enchant your affixes like normal on those 3 ones that drop. You cannot enchant into a greater affix. You can enchant out of a greater affix. So if you choose to, if you've got a 1 greater affix item, you can enchant that greater affix to something else, but it won't change to another greater, and you can't change anything into a greater.
Why not?
It's all about
that would be
killing
cool.
monsters, finding that moment that is really exciting when the item drops, seeing if that works for you. So I just wanted to clarify that on how enchanting works and kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Focusing on the drop.
I mean, I can deal with that.
The drop is the moment of excitement that we're going for there.
Right, and then one thing I want to call out as well that we didn't talk about already, and that is that there's a lot of other changes that we haven't actually discussed here that you'll see when we get to play in the PTR. But one of them I think is really cool is we actually add a bunch of other new baseline rare affixes that can appear on items.
Yeah.
That players haven't seen before.
Yes.
So there's as an example of a few of these, we have Fury per second. Can appear on items, which is very, very exciting and very
useless
interesting for my barbarian friends. It's very transformative. There's a number of other ones like life per hit. Is now something that players can find as you're going through the experience. Are there any?
Life per hit would be there before, just was lucky.
And also ones that are cool and powerful that appear on different slots. So previously, weapons almost always had bonus damage of some sort. We've extended that, so a lot of weapons can now have resource cost reduction. They can have bonus attack speed and other things that increase your output through not just saying damage to a certain way. More interesting ways of increasing your output.
So they remove affixes and then add new
Projectiles,
ones.
That's just the most popular. I'm terrified of it. It's so cool though, but it's gonna
that
be
is really
pretty
cool.
sick.
Having bonus projectiles drop and then have that potentially be a greater affix when
And
it
then you
grows, and then you
masterwork it,
masterwork bonus
now
I mean, I like
projectiles,
greater
and
affixes though.
It gets silly.
Greater affix is definitely an S tier.
I know we want to talk about some end game stuff that's coming to the game. Actually, maybe we leave that for the end of the stream itself, right before we go into Q&A. Is there? I'm going to ask production here. I'm going to pivot them. Is there a way that we can jump to class changes coming to
Me next?
Yeah, Fury per second is like a
Yeah,
joke.
kind of a shrug. So like, I think so.
Yeah. We'll go through the end game stuff here.
All right, let's
because
go.
We do have a lot of additional things that we still need to talk about that even pair with this itemization, these itemization changes. But we'll jump into class changes really quickly. And then
Sure,
we'll
we
jump
can go
back
to me
the
next.
game.
That's fine.
All right, let's go. Class changes.
Take us away, Adam.
All right, so are we ready to go? Yeah, okay. So we've got kind of 3 big goals for class updates. We've got a lot going on. I'm going to try and breeze through a little quick in the interest of time. The first one is going through a very high volume of meaningful class updates. And what I mean by meaningful is, not just moving numbers up and down on things that exist, but kind of either updating systems of how things interact at a systemic level, or adding things that are really, really powerful and are actually going to move the needle and change how you interact with the class
Let's
or the
see what
skill
that's
or the
gonna be.
legendary or whatever we're changing. Next one is making flat damage effects more viable. So by flat damage, I'm talking about things like dust devils, earthquakes, dancing bolts, all these things. I talked a few Campfire chats ago about how I wanted to make these things like a lot more viable and scale better, and we're going to be making good on that in Season 4. I'm excited we'll go into more details, but yeah, that's one of the big things that's changing this season. And last but not least, opening up designs to be more generally useful. So kind of similar to item affixes, how you've got these like multi-conditional things. We're going through classes across the board and going and looking for ways that we can open up things. So you're going to find that things that were a little more restrictive, we're going to try and make interact with more different pieces. So, something may have only talked to core skills, now it can be any skill, things like that.
Okay.
Or we're trying to make things less conditional so that you can mix and match things
But it's still just
a lot
damage.
more often. So, yeah, in addition to those 3 things, those are our goals. I'm also going to be talking a little bit today about PTR balance and hardcore updates. And little PSA, everything that you see here right now, the tuning is still in flux. We're going through the balancing process right now of these things. So any exact numbers that you see of updates is very much subject to change, not only before PTR, but of course one of our goals for you playing PTR is helping us with the tuning and balance because everything is going to be changing. So yeah, expect things to change, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right.
So first, let's talk about uniques. So in Season 4, you're going to be getting double the normal amount of uniques added to the game. Normally, every class gets 1.
All
Every
right.
class is going to be
Useless
getting 2
item.
this time. So again, more content. We're also adding a new Uber unique here, Tyrell's Might. This is a defensive.
Yeah, because we all like
unique.
artillery
It's
shrines,
gonna be
right?
a chess piece. You can see the stats there. Lots of resistance-oriented things and damage reduction. By the way, in this new world, damage reduction is going to be much harder to come by. So it's actually a lot more special that it exists here. And the special power of this is that when you're at maximum life, so when you have the entire life bar full, you're going to be shooting out projectiles very similar to the artillery shrine.
But it's like no
so you can
damage.
see here kind of in action, you can see that sometimes he's attacking and it's not going off, and then as he heals up, you get those bolts that's hitting enemies. It's really, really flashy and cool.
Okay. Why not?
So yeah, class updates. Like I mentioned before, we're really looking to move the needle on these. We are still going to be having a number of changes, quite a few of just things going up and down for tuning. But we're also looking at updating some systems and designs. And I'm going to give you some examples. Now, everything I talk about here today, I'm giving you a small snippet of the things that we're doing, like 1 or 2 examples per class. But when you get the patch notes, you're going to see it's like a giant wall. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing everywhere.
Just a slice of the overall pie.
Yeah. So, some examples here. Skill tag updates. So, we're not only doing this on the Sorceress, but on other classes as well. But this is the one example I want to give. One of the pain points that Sorceress has always had is that they have
Frozen Orb
core
getting
skills
low.
and then
That's a
mastery
W.
skills. Mastery skills are things like Firewall, Meteor, things like that. And the mastery skills, we're always kind of second class to the core skills because we had a lot of things that scale core skill damage, but not mastery skill damage. So we've updated our skill tags and kind of changed things around so that they make more sense. So you're going to see more skill tags added to things across the board. And the example here is that mastery skills will also just have the core skill
See?
tag.
Minion
They'll be
updates.
considered both mastery and core skills. So all your
More
core skill
conjuration and
damage
minion
bonuses,
buffs.
interactions, all that stuff will just work now. Did you have something?
Yeah, just we also talked about like
Frozen Orb
ability
is an
skill
S
tag
tier.
added
Yes.
to a lot of skills as well, and how that interacts with the tempering system. You have ways of getting mobility skill cooldown reduction that ties into the same
Yeah,
concept.
So now
yeah,
I
we're
need
actually
multiple
adding the mobility
projectiles
skill
for
tag
Frozen
all
Orb.
things across all classes that have mobility attached to them, so then they can interact with the itemization system,
Yeah.
and you'll have these things working in tandem together. That's a good point. Yeah, so now some other examples. Frozen Orb on the Sorceress is getting a lot of love. Before, when you cast it, it would go an exact set distance and then blow up, but now it's going to go exactly where you point it at it to with your cursor. So you're not going to hate your life if you run into like a suppressor elite, for example. You can actually make it fire point blank or all the way across the screen. And we'll actually be showing some video of that as well.
could also
We
just
have a
remove
new unique that
suppressors.
We're going to have video of. That's really awesome. So Frozen Orb sorceresses are going to be really happy this season. And next, Necromancer. I've been talking for a while about Necromancer minions and how we're going to make them better. We're delivering on that in Season 4. The first change is that they're going to inherit 100% of the player stats. So, your crit chance, crit damage, all those things, they're just going to inherit it from you. So they're going to scale way better with you, the player. And this is not only going to apply to Necromancer minions, but all minion types in our game. Things like Druid Wolves are also going to be inheriting this and are going to get a pretty big power bump. We're also looking. We took a look at the.
Maybe
look
we
of
finally
the
get
head
minions which do damage.
and basically revamped everything. All the upgrades almost are getting some type of either number or big functionality change, and I'm going to be going through some examples there. But it's just going to be a lot more punchy. We're not only looking for effectiveness here, like making things stronger, but we also like the rule of cool, where the things that are awesome and look cool and are visual are going to stand out more. And so we're trying to do that as much as we can.
Okay.
So next, let's talk about game balance. So as I kind of alluded to earlier, the landscape of everything is changing pretty drastically, right?
cares?
Itemization is going to be changing a lot of how player power works and how things work in the game. We've got a lot of class updates that are going to be changing how things are. You can expect a pretty big shakeup of like just how all the different classes and builds perform. Like it's going to be a brave new world really here. But normally we promised a while back that we're going to do lists of everything that's perceived as a nerf. I'm not going to be going through every single thing today. You'll be able to see everything in the patch notes on the PTR, and that's mostly in the interest of time, just because there's so much change that's happening. But I am going to give you, a snippet to do good on that promise of kind of how the game is now, and some things that you can expect that are going to be lowered in power in the future. So some examples here. Generally, Tybalt's Will, everyone's favorite pants, right? And not only is it really good because the effect is good, but also its damage on pants,
I like that.
which makes it really, really good. That
I hate
damage
that
amount is being
T-Bolts is
reduced.
mandatory.
Same with Banished Lord's Talisman. Both of these uniques are
Wait, what?
insanely
Nobody's using
powerful.
Banished Lord's
They're still
Talisman.
going to be really good after this.
Who cares
but the damage
about
is
it?
being lowered so that other things can be competitive. Next, the Barbarian, everybody's favorite charging class.
I like T-Bolt's nerf.
First thing that we're doing is, many of you may not know this, but when we launched the game, we actually gave them 10% inherent damage reduction. This was
I like
back
that.
when melee classes in general and the Barbarian were having trouble in the early game. Our game balance has changed radically since then, and we don't feel like they really need this anymore. And we don't want them to have an inherent advantage over all the other classes in the game anymore. So that's going to be
Who cares about
removed. And
damage
even,
reduction?
like I mentioned before when Charles was talking, damage reduction in general is going to be much more rare and special. You're not just going to find it on any defensive stat. When you see it, it's going to be something that you're going to really value because it's hard to come by. And we also think Barbarians are still going to be really good in this regard because their skill tree has a lot of it. Their skills like Challenging Shout have it. So I think they're going to be fine, but we're just removing this extra part. Also, we're reducing the effectiveness of Charge, Hammer of the Ancients, and Unbridled Rage. All three of these things have been incredibly powerful. Some things like Unbridled Rage have kind of been stamping out competing things for a long time just because it's so good. Our goal here is not to remove these from the game or make these builds not viable at all.
I mean, they could just fix the bugs which are making those skills so important, like doing so much damage instead of
nerfing the
nerfing the skills.
Sorcerer, we got a couple bug fixes here. We have more bug fixes than this. But this is
Oh,
just some that I
bye-bye
wanted
instant
to call
teleport.
out.
That was
The
that
first
was
one we
obvious,
had
and I
was
actually
where
like
the
that.
Cooldown reduction affix was triggering
I like that.
off of unstable currents casts. And so what this basically meant was you equip those boosts to have evade cooldown reduction, and then you use unstable currents.
I
and
hate
you had,
that
like,
teleport
infinite
meta.
uptime on
I really
teleport
like
days,
that.
which made you just teleport around forever. This has been fixed, so now it's only going to work with
Asus
intentional
Ferocity
casts
fix
now,
just
as it
took
was
1
intended
year.
to. And the next one is Isu's Ferocity. This
So,
is a key passive on the sorcerer.
that's the
that
end of
used to
Frost
apply
builds,
critical
because
strike
Frost
damage to
builds
all
are not going to have an
damage types,
ultimate
because the
now.
Fire key passive. Now it's only going to apply to fire damage as it was intended to. And again, this is just a snippet of everything, but there's going to be a lot more stuff. And again, like everything you know is basically going to change because of how many things are being updated in the game. So I wouldn't worry too much about any specific build. All right, so now let's get to the fun part, class updates. So I'm going to be going through all the different classes here and just showing like 1 to 2 examples of kind of the ideas of things that we're changing. Again, lots more than what you're going to see.
Please give me
but kind of
multiple
giving you an idea of what
projectiles
to
on
expect in
sorcerers.
the direction that we're going here. So first we'll start with the Barbarians. So I like Dust Devils. I've liked them for a long time, and not just things like Dust Devils, but all those types of extra affixes that spawn things. So here's an example of Wind Slasher. This is a legendary that we updated. So it's the double swing legendary that spawns Dust Devils. Before it was you would cast double swing twice and you like go in and out and in and out, and every other time you'd make a Dust Devil, right? Pretty cool. We're updating this now, so every single time that you cast double swing, it does a Dust Devil. And instead of every other time spawning 1, every other time spawns 3. So now, instead of going hit, then 1, then hit, then 1, it's 1, then 3, then 1, then 3, which means a lot more Dust Devils.
And I want to call it again, there's tempered affixes that give you chances to spawn additional Dust Devils when you spawn a Dust Devil. So.
And affixes that talk to them directly in itemization with tempering, like their size can go up, their damage can go up. Like we're actually going to make this a thing.
I know I'm talking a lot about Dust Devils. There's cool stuff for all of the classes.
So you made a Dust Devil build?
Actually, a lot of Dust Devil bar during one season. So
It's the example I tell our team. It's like always
Sounds
I say
funny,
Earthquakes and
actually.
Dust Devil. Like these things need to be cool, and all the ones like that though across the other classes. Anyways, that's the Bard. So there's not just this, lots of other legendaries are like this. Druid, for example, a thing that has been long complained about to me is that lacerate isn't up to par to other things. So there on the left is what you can see exists today, where the upgrades for lacerate are, the first one is you heal for a little bit for every hit, and then it's doubled when you crit. And then the next upgrade is that its initial strike crits and does a little bit more damage. We're just merging those together. So both of those combined is going to be your first lacerate upgrade. And now we added a second upgrade there, where every time that lacerate crits, all of your shape-shifting skills are going to deal more damage for 10 seconds, up to 40%. So now we're adding a very strong, potent, multiplicative damage bonus buff after lacerate. So now, lacerate, it's going to give you invulnerability, life leech, crit, and then a potent damage buff for a while after you cast it. So then if you can get cooldown reduction on it, you can keep that buff rolling and actually have like a build going on. Next, the Sorceress. So here, instead of just text, I'm actually going to show you some videos. The first one is going to be showing that Frozen Orb change that we talked about here. So basically, you can see here that where the person is targeting with their cursor is where the Frozen Orb is going to explode.
Why do I need the presentation
so now you can make it point blank, you can make it far away.
Not so difficult to understand, right?
Wherever you go. And for you controller players, this is going to interact just
Show me
like
the
other
unique,
skills
dude.
where it just goes to an enemy, and then if there's nothing nearby,
I want
it
to see
just
the
goes a set
unique.
distance before blowing up.
Give me the Frozen Orb unique.
Next, we're going to be talking about the unique. So prefacing this unique a little bit before we show the video. The basic idea is Conjurations are cool and Frozen Orb is cool. And what's going to happen with this unique is Frozen Orb is going to have a chance when it explodes to spawn Conjurations.
Oh, come on, what
and
the
then
hell?
anytime that your Conjurations attack, they have a chance to throw Frozen Orbs at enemies.
It is so
now we're going to see
random.
this in action here. So it's called Fractured Winter
Oh
Glass.
no, it's
and
an
this video is
amulet.
just the person casting
No.
Frozen Orb with this unique. So at first it's like, okay, it's fine. You see a couple Conjurations, right? But then as you go on, you can see that the Frozen Orbs are making more of them, and then the Conjurations are also throwing out
honestly,
more Frozen Orbs.
That is like ridiculous, actually,
This is all
right?
just from pressing one button.
This is all just from throwing out Frozen Orbs.
Just been right-clicking this whole time.
Yeah, so it's like when I place a firewall.
If that
my
diminishing
firewall makes
returns,
it easier.
you will have like a
firewall.
gazillion conjurations.
Yes, Conjurations.
But Conjurations, yeah,
So
yeah.
Hydra throwing Frozen Orbs.
Firewall
Yeah, exactly.
Meteor sounds cool too.
That's interesting.
Okay,
Fair
I got
enough.
an idea.
But it's so random. Why would a
But yeah,
Frozen
so
Orb
this is an
spawn
example of one of the
conjurations? It
cool
doesn't make
uniques
any
that we're
sense at
adding to
all.
the game. Next, let's move on to the Rogue. So we're also updating some class mechanics and other things. Inner Sight has kind of been eclipsed by other things in our game, right? When we first made Inner Sight, it triggered off of this idea that you were going to target a single enemy, pick on that enemy, and build up this gauge, and then you have unlimited energy, and unlimited energy was supposed to be
That's
this
like,
really crazy,
I don't
rare
know.
thing that was not going to happen
That I
very often.
see.
It turned out that's not really the case through itemization and other things. You can kind of solve resource a lot easier
Why?
nowadays.
Yeah, it's fun to do that too.
Yeah,
Why?
it's fun. We want
Why
people
would
to
I
do
want to
that.
have
So we have to
synergy between
update our
frozen
other
open
systems in
conjurations?
accordance to
That doesn't make
which
any
is kind of
sense.
what we're doing here. So now
I don't get it.
you don't only have to hit the marked enemy, but you can charge up inner sight off of everything. So as you're blowing up waves of enemies, you still want to make sure you're hitting the one that's targeted, but now you'll get a little bit of gauge off of any enemy that you hit. And now in addition to that, the payoff is better. So not only are you going to get that unlimited energy still, but you're also going to get a 25% crit chance boost. So now you're going to be hitting harder when you are in inner sight mode. So now there's actually a damage component there too, in addition to the unlimited energy. Next, Necromancer. So like I said, Book of the Dead is getting upgrades. I kind of picked one slice from each part, from each minion type. So here you can see your Skeletal Reapers, the wind-up attacks now, can reduce one of your active cooldowns by a pretty chunky amount. 3 seconds is insane, but there'll be a number that'll make sense there. Maybe it is 3. Next one for the mages, one of their upgrades used to be that they've made frozen enemies vulnerable, and now they just make everything vulnerable. So actually, if you want cold mages to solve vulnerable for you, you pretty much can, just with this upgrade. And last but not least, we have your Iron Golem. So Iron Golem, now that when you tell it to go somewhere and do that slam attack where it pounds the ground, it'll also pull in enemies, very similar to Corpse Tendrils. So it's not as required, to put that on your bar. You have another way to kind of get that effect. Another thing I didn't put on the slide that I want to call out with golems that'll make players happy. Golem now, while you're CC'd or at any time, when you activate it, it's going to make both your golem and you unstoppable. Ooh. So now you have another source of unstoppable on the Necromancer for minion builds, which I think will make players really happy.
Yeah, it's a buddy cop situation.
You and your buddies going and taking people
These
out.
updates are like so minor. Like I actually expected something more interesting, I have to say.
So next, like I was saying before, flat damage attack. Effects, dust levels, and earthquakes are going to be your friends now.
What, you buffed it
So
by
before,
10%?
these legendaries did not scale very well. And what I mean by that is that the damage that they did was fixed. So if you got like a dust level or earthquake or whatever, you got that legendary at like level 25, the damage that it did was just a number, and that number didn't really go up with you or scale with you in a meaningful way. Now, under the hood, all of these things are going to be scaling based off your weapon damage, which means that these things will scale with you as a player and be much more viable now. And I believe we can zoom in on this example I give. So this one is Dancing Bolts. I'm actually running this legendary right now in my Lightning Storm Druid. So you can see that, it's the same legendary on each side. This is me just changing out my weapon while I have this legendary equipped. This is in Season 4.
That's a good
so you can see
change.
it does an amount of damage on the left, about 5,400 there. Now that number on the right, I didn't get a new legendary, I didn't change it, I didn't do anything except change my weapon, and that increased the damage that these Dancing Bolts are going to do. So when you get these legendaries now, they're going to scale.
Now I want
with
to
you
play
and
like
quite a bit more
interesting
damage
builds.
and be
I want to
punching you
launch
really
like 5 frozen
This
orbs.
is in addition to like tempering and other things, talking to
I don't
these
care
things, so
about
you can
spawning
actually itemize
conjurations
into
from
them more
frozen orb.
powerful
Doesn't
as
make
well.
any sense.
And it's funny because there's some people I think that didn't catch. Maybe they didn't.
I
catch
really
the
thought they
first
would
part of
show
the
like
itemization,
something
but they're
like
looking at the
groundbreaking.
second legendary, the new one, and
Like,
they're going like,
really,
well, it's only got 3 stats or something.
like multi-shot
This is-
or something like
you
that.
Probably
But
watch a recording of this.
Yeah, that's when it drops, not after you've done all your stuff
exactly.
on it.
There's
Yeah.
a lot,
This is
there's
not
a
like a lot,
of,
honestly.
itemization changes to make the items feel more valuable themselves in Season 4. So I recommend watching the recording just for people that may have missed the itemization or checking out our blog next week.
You can temper 2 more affixes on them. There you go.
Yeah, they got 5.
That's right.
All right, so last but not least is opening up designs. Like I talked about, one of our goals here, make things more generally useful, less restrictions. We can zoom in here. I have 2 examples. One is Azurath here on the left, a unique sword. So 2 things going on here. First, you can see before, it was that your core skills have a chance to freeze enemies and deal a bunch of damage to them. On the right, we've removed the core skill requirement, and now any of your skills.
But
can
it
have a
still
chance
has
to
core
freeze enemies.
damage.
So this means you can use it on, like charge and other similar
doesn't
things
make
like
any
that, where,
sense.
maybe you want to make a build around something that's not a core skill to proc this, you totally can, or it's just going to proc more often and you just play normally. Second thing you'll notice is on the left it says Barbarian only. We just removed that restriction. So now any class that can use a sword can use Azurath. Again, we're just trying to look for places where there was restrictions, and when we can, we're just removing them.
Okay, who cares?
Next one is Opportunist. This one I'm really excited about on the Rogue. I think I'm going to play a Rogue this season. So on the left is the old version, where it says when you break stealth with an attack, you can drop stun grenades, right? And then those grenades deal damage and stun enemies. On the right, we've removed a lot of these restrictions and made it more useful. So now it's when you enter or break stealth, and you don't need to break stealth when you attack. So anytime that you cast stealth or go into stealth, you're going to get 2 sets of these, and it's just going to be when you go in and out, and you just get stun grenades. You also notice that this is a tuning thing, but the stun
it's also
duration of
just
stun
number
grenades has been
buffing.
buffed. It's a second now.
In
And
a
then we
different
also
way.
did a thing that I'm really excited about here, where every single stun grenade legendary will increase the damage of your grenade skills, and all of them are going to have this. So if you want to make a stun grenade build, if you collect, the 4 or 5 of these legendaries that kind of combo together, every one is going to incrementally increase your grenade's damage as well, to a point where they'll be doing a lot more meaningful damage in your build.
I don't really understand that phrase there.
All right, last but not least, we've got hardcore updates. So for you hardcore players, Elixir of Death Evasion is being removed from the game. It's dying, and it's not coming back, just like you will in hardcore. We've also redesigned the Flame Shield enchantment. So before, it used to be a cheat death mechanic, where when you took fatal damage, it would, proc and save you. Now it's going to automatically activate when you lose a certain amount of life, and then it has.
Why would anybody
an
use
internal
this
cooldown on
enchantment?
that.
It's completely useless.
So we've heard from the community kind of loud and clear. They really want hardcore to be hardcore, and so we're going to deliver on that. Now you actually have to be careful.
But why not remove the enchantment from the game then?
Have those fail safes to keep you alive.
Because the right one is like literally useless.
And finally, PTR feedback. So like we mentioned before, we're going to be looking at the PTR feedback very carefully. Please let us know what you think. The class team is particularly excited about what's working for you and what's not working for you. When you're kind of tuning your feedback and typing it to us, we're really looking at things like tuning and balance. We know that things are going to be pretty wacky in this brave new world that we're going into. We're also looking for what changes really made the game more fun to you. You're going to see a lot of them, a lot more than what I presented today. We really want to know what changes we did maybe didn't hit the mark and why.
This is
maybe
not
we didn't go far enough, or this thing could have been way better with just a small tweak. And then last but not least, we want to know what would you like to see that didn't make it in, right? We're forever going to be updating this game, and we really want to know,
it's
going to
auto-target.
Feedback, like, flat damage scaling, unstoppable coming on the golem for necromancers who've been wanting more sources of it. What other things are you seeing that, have always kind of bugged you or have always been kind of a pain point that you would like us to change? And we'll be looking for that feedback.
Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much everything we got for classes. Thanks everybody.
That's
again.
like nothing, like literally no class changes. I feel like that is not a lot.
Information for classes, and it's funny because everyone's treating this PTR feedback slide as if we're done.
No. There's more. There's a lot more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We haven't even gotten started yet.
As the chat calls it, Joe Pipe4 Rap God has not spoken yet. So he will be talking here now about endgame specific items.
Sure, thanks. So a couple things I want to talk about first. We're going to talk about some new content stuff in just a minute, but there's some other things that are also changing at the same time. You'll see on the PTR, we've made adjustments to world tiers, in that we've changed the XP modifier that you get for opting into certain world tiers.
Okay.
So
once again.
So the reason why we're doing this, we want to get players to endgame a little bit faster. So we've made
even faster.
Where World Tier 2 now goes, instead of giving you 20% bonus XP, it gives you 50% bonus XP. World Tier 3 now gives you 150% bonus XP as opposed to the 100% you got before.
Okay.
And then World Tier 4 gives you 250% bonus XP instead of the 200% that you got before.
Okay.
So again, we want to get players.
So leveling is 10 hours now to 100.
These new items, they're going to get a chance to see some of the new content we're going to be talking about in just a minute. And experience more of the end game, and
even more
and
progression
have a little less,
removal.
Emphasis on the level up process.
I put this at
being
D.
a lot longer as it is today. So this is our stated intent. We want more players to be able to reach level 100. We want them to get more of these level 100.
I don't like that.
925 items. We want them to start seeing more greater affixes. We want them to engage in tempering and masterworking. We want them to see.
Like if I get everything even faster.
We want to make sure that we're removing some of the restrictions and making that possible.
I don't know.
It's
not for
to
me.
think about that as we move forward. This is just all of the things we're talking about today are just one more step on the journey of Diablo 4. We're going to continue, as Adam already called out, to continue to make the game better based on feedback and just continue to add more cool stuff that we think is great for the game, and that also that we're hearing from our player base, our community, would be really, really great for the game experience. So,
I feel like leveling is
that
fast
quick
enough.
Thing out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the first major update we have planned that you get a chance to see on PTR. And that is, we made a significant update to Helltide.
That's
now,
so good.
I think
I hate Helltides, but
that in Season 3, we made an adjustment to Helltide timing, where now they're basically up for 55 minutes out of every hour. There's a 5-minute gap between each Helltide experience.
Okay.
And we think that that's great. Players are able to get better access to Forgotten Souls and all the gameplay there. But we also, like, looking back on Season 2 and You know, the Blood Harvest
still
regions
boring
where
and
you know, the armies
useless.
of Lord Zir were marching across Sanctuary, as we all recall from quarter 4 of last year, and you know, capturing people and draining them of blood. You know, that was we thought that was a really fun, frenetic, like social experience in the overworld. Like it's just a blast, kind of go through.
Who
Kill
cares about
vampires,
this
save
overworld
people,
bullshit, really?
And summon
Like,
bloodseekers
nobody
as
cares
well
about.
along
That's
the
no
way, and
endgame.
getting good rewards as you go. It was just it was a fun experience. And in season 3, we had a different take on that idea with the form of arcane tremors, where players can go and engage in a number of different small activities and traps.
It's just
And,
recycling the
also,
same system
managed to,
all over
to
again.
summon Heralds of Malthus in a group and go ahead and get more like tuning stones and more and governing stones, and continue to like just get more rewards from that experience. And again, we thought that was pretty fun, right? So we wanted to take some of these ideas back to Helltide, and I'll be actually, I think it might be even easier if we could just throw to Ruben potentially, who I think might actually be able to be in Helltide right now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Looks like that's the case. So we want to take some of these ideas back
Where's
to Helltide.
the monster density?
Oh, well, yes, you're going to get...
Didn't they say more monster density? That's like 5 guys.
Yeah, we want to take some of these ideas back to Helltide and make sure that our overworld, exciting, demonic invasion experience that players get to go through here is just more fun to engage
Okay,
with.
so
that just
I mean
a
that's
giant
randomly
hellworm
elite
belching
spawning.
a
That's
bunch
all right.
of
That's a
enemies?
W.
That was a giant hellworm belching a bunch of enemies up. So a bunch of things have changed. So one of the things that let me dive in. So one of the things that we did is we add this new idea of a threat system. Now you'll see the eagle-eyed among you can look to the left of the minimap. Thank you, Ruben. Can look to the left of the minimap, and you'll see a horizontal bar. It's segmented in 3 pieces. Next to that kind of like half-completed pentagram there. As the players are killing demons in Helltide areas, they are slowly growing their threat over the course of the experience.
What do you mean slowly? He killed 20 mobs.
They're going to find like more.
And he's already
like,
full.
ambushes. They're going to find more creatures coming and trying to kill them as they kind of like roll through the space.
Oh my god, he's going to die.
They're gaining threat by doing anything. If they're opening tortured gifts, if they are killing regular monsters.
Okay, look at
elites,
this. There's a pretty new
they're
boss.
always earning more threat for the things that they do. The armies.
Well,
of
that's the
hell are
Helltide
paying more
assassin.
attention.
He's running away.
So as the player is going to go through this process, they are going to start feeling like more pressure as they go through the experience. Now, once the player is gotten towards the end of this, like they actually have, when the armies of hell have been fully alerted, you'll hear a tone, which I think that I think we might actually hear soon potentially. I guess we'll have to see. But you'll hear a tone alerting you to the fact that the armies of hell are basically coming for your blood, right? They're coming for you at this time. And what they
I see the infinite
see
farm,
that there's a
Helltide
new
farm for leveling.
creature type that's going to appear, which we'll be able to get to in just a second. Some of
Kill
the other
50
big
mobs,
changes
spawn
that are
50 new
happening
ones,
in,
and so on.
Helltide alongside this, while we kind of wait.
I can already see that.
Is we've
might
reduced
actually be
the
fun,
level
to be quite honest.
The world tier requirement for Helltides. You'll start to see them in lower world tiers now, so they're in a great way for you.
But
to
I
level
don't
up.
see any
Okay,
monster
looks like
density
forces of hell
update
have
there.
been alerted.
Okay,
so now
so-
it's going to be like it's going to be a little.
So you get 2
almost more of
bosses.
a holdout. More invasions and ambushes are going to start to occur at this time. And it's going to have a kind of cap-off event towards the end. We'll talk about as it arrives. But you can see right now that threat is draining while this event is occurring. So you've kind of like reached that maximum threshold.
But that spawns way too slow again.
The minions of hell are coming for you.
Like,
you're going to be.
that should be way
kind of fighting
faster.
pretty hard for this stuff.
But I mean, that's
It's
cool.
a great way to get like access to a lot of.
I mean,
elites.
I guess it's
once
cool,
This
like,
bar is drained, once
I still
again, you
don't
start
wanna
building
play
it up, again,
Helltides,
going out,
but it's-
doing more
I
things
guess
inside
it's-
the Helltide experience.
You know,
You're going to get more opportunities for more.
nobody
silvers,
cares about
and more
this
you can
change,
push
actually,
again
but it's a good
as
change.
time goes on.
But
We're getting towards the
it's not
end
endgame. It's just random Helltide buffing. But I can see leveling methods with this, right?
This Hellborn here.
Yeah.
This is,
So yes, and now one of the Hellborn has managed to appear. Hellborn are they're very much a
That's
a
the
similar creature
Bloodseeker.
to some of the Bloodseekers that we've seen in the past. These are
Yeah.
adventurers who fall.
That's what I said, they're just recycling
Gravities of
systems.
Hell. They're now serving
They are
their
not making
fellow
anything
masters.
new.
They have great drops, like they'll drop like legendary.
They have
equipment.
great drops. They drop
And,
3
They will
legendaries.
also drop summoning materials for Lord Zir moving forward. So there's more ways for you to get some of those.
Nobody wants to
masks as you go
summon
through the
Lord
experience.
Zir. I have
And that's actually one of the other things that we
Like,
did.
literally, I
as
have
a-
summoned
as
this
part
boss
of,
once
our
in,
general
like,
updates, is we kind of wanted to
at
go
all.
through and do a pass to make it easier to
Why would you
find
even
more
wanna
of
do that
those-
boss?
Those boss summoning materials, like from doing like different kinds of content. So while obviously you can go to Helltides and open tortured gifts to get living steel pretty quickly, We want to make sure that there's like, if you find like a treasure goblin, there's a chance now that treasure goblin could drop a random boss summoning material. When you go and you open bounty caches or whisper caches at the end of a bunch of whispers runs, like in that situation, you'll also get a chance to get a random boss summoning material.
I mean, I'm not
and
blown
we
away
find
by this,
more
honestly.
opportunities for
They
different
just
parts of the experience
copied
in,
some
like,
stuff
local
from
events,
Season
like
2
when
into
going
Hell
to
Tides.
finding events and you manage to complete the mastery objective
What?
in an event now, there's a chance for you to get a boss summoning material there. Even elites have a very, very low chance to drop some of these materials. And again, all to make it just a little bit easier to kind of like gain access to these bosses as you're leveling up and playing, even if you're not saying specifically in just
nobody
like,
farms mats to go
right?
Uber Duriel. Like
So
people
that's-
just buy it
those- I
from
think
like
those are gonna be
Chinese
some pretty fun
dupers.
updates for the players. That's obviously
pretty
not
exciting.
everything.
Yeah.
So so another thing that we're doing as part of this is that we are adding a new
Like, just think about this for like a second. If you farm all the items to play Uber Duriel, to farm Uber Uniques, you will be spending like a month straight farming to get like 1 or 2 Uber Uniques. Like, nobody would ever do this. So that's why the Chinese just dupe them and you buy them from the Chinese guys for gold. Like, nobody wants to farm these materials because, if the Uber Unique drop chance would be like 10%, then it would make sense to farm them. But with the current drop chance, farming those, it's just such like massive waste of time.
We're adding a new boss. To the
boss.
game. We're adding
fancy.
Andariel. So you can now
Nice,
fight
Andariel.
She is summonable by defeating the Beast in Ice and Lord Zir. And she's got the same drop table as Duriel. So we want to make sure that players have a couple different ways to kind of gain access to these really, really powerful uniques that Duriel drops. But
So they
also
just add
that
Andariel,
shot
which
in
is the
getting
same
to
as
the
Duriel?
uniques without
Like,
always
for what
requiring players to
reason?
go back to those same places. So between opening up the options of how you gain access
I
to
don't get
tools
it.
you can use to go farm Uber Uniques a little bit earlier, to like now saying, like, hey, go do Nightmare Dungeons, go do some of this overworld
Okay,
content. And
I don't
Hellfire
care,
content, and gain
honestly.
access to Beast and Ice
I
and
put
Lord
this at
Zir.
C.
You can go farm Andariel there. We think that's gonna be like a really, really fun change. And Andariel is a really cool fight. I think we might actually have like a quick
what-
little shot of the summon.
Like, just think about this. Like, why? Why same drop table? Why don't you divide the drop table, put half of the Uber Uniques to Duriel and the other half to Andariel, and then you have, like, you only need to, like, you can better target farm the Uber Uniques, but why give them the same drop table? Doesn't make any sense. It's just stupid.
Summoning for Andariel, as we all know her and love her. There she is.
Wow.
She's cute, though.
She's tough. It's gonna be.
I want to say the fight's been
Yeah, I'm sure
updated,
she's
too.
gonna be
It's
tough.
not
Fight.
exactly the same as what
Yeah.
you did before.
Yeah,
so.
the designer's been very excited about this fight.
I don't get
Very
it.
excited about
Just
Andariel
divide
for
the
a while,
drop
but
table,
really
then it
got
wouldn't make
into
sense.
the equation.
Then I would say
So,
the
yeah.
change is a
She's gonna be
W.
a lot of fun to summon.
Like this, the change is meaningless.
Oh, the Poison Nova class.
Yeah. Okay, enough Andariel. Enough Andariel.
All right, yeah.
People will see that.
Yeah,
We're on a timer, people. Okay, I got things to talk about still. Okay, but that's not even all the things that we're changing with regards to bosses. There's
That's
more
it?
stuff that we're doing as well.
Okay.
So one of the things that we're going to be talking about in just a minute is a new feature called the Pit. And inside
Okay.
the Pit, you're going to be earning Stygian stones you'll be able to use
Pit.
to summon higher level versions of all of these bosses as you go deeper into the experience.
Okay.
So we think this is extremely exciting. It provides another way for players to be able to like express their build strength, and going and fighting these bosses are going to provide much greater rewards. In fact, when you kill one of these new very, very powerful tormented versions of these bosses out there, they are going to give you one resplendent spark the first time you kill any of them. So of like all the ones that you can summon, the first time you
just
kill
one?
of them, you're going to get a resplendent spark for you to use in the future.
Okay,
Now,
so you
and
get
that
one
is
free
not
Uber
all that
Unique.
we're doing, obviously, I mentioned the Pit. So if we could just go
That's
ahead.
cool,
and,
actually. I
well,
like
guess we'll-
that.
I guess we can
I
talk
put
about
that
it.
at S tier,
speaking of
actually.
Yeah. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from like our experience with the Abattoir of Zir. Towards the end of season 2, we had this
We had one
really,
free
really
Uber Unique.
difficult like dungeon dive.
Nothing wrong about that, right? I don't need to ever farm Uber Uniques again.
Lord
I just
Zir,
want my Shaco.
inside this experience and fighting Bloodseekers and kind of
Alright,
racing the
let's
clock.
get
Well,
the
that was a
AOZ.
pretty fun experience. We got a lot of really good information and feedback about how that really played out. We made a number of adjustments in the form of this new content type that we're calling the Artificer's Pit. And what it effectively is a way for players to go and once players have managed to complete a tier 45 Nightmare Dungeon, which is filled with like level 100 monsters, they're going to gain access to a quest that's going to like send them around the world looking for rune shards. And rune shards are just this new material that players will collect to open up Artificer's Rifts. And they drop from elite creatures, they drop all over the place. Like, it's pretty easy to find the materials you'll need to start this process.
So Rift.
And when you have a number of them, you can bring them back to this Obelisk in Karagar and kind of use that to like form your first pit run effectively. And there's hundreds of levels of this, and the monsters that you will begin fighting immediately are all like right at level 100. Do we have
we have a video of it.
So again,
yeah, let's see what we got.
Useless
so
content?
We have, Ruben, like
I
kind of
think
near
it's live,
there?
yeah.
Perfect, yeah, we have the live play.
With that awesome debug text.
Yeah, there it
but
is. Yeah, with the awesome debug text. Everybody, it's PTR. Look forward, and we're talking about dev stuff right now. This is what it looks like sometimes. So, okay, so we see here that Ruben's coming here. He's already done the Rift before.
So
He's
it's
gonna
just
go ahead and
AUZ?
open up a tier 1 Artificer's Rift, and we'll see how this goes. So he's gonna
Why not
spend
a
one
tier
moonshot to do
50?
this. That's going to open up right here in Karagar. And we're going to go.
And it doesn't
there's
work.
A little bit of a stacking issue there. Yeah, we're going to have that fixed too. Again, send us that feedback, everybody.
Well,
and you're going to dive into your first pit run. Now, each pit experience it's a randomized layout filled with random monsters. There's no nightmare affixes like what we have in or like afflictions like we have in.
So this is
Dungeons.
AOZ.
Instead,
Exact
players
copy.
really like just pushing themselves up as against this timer as fast as they can, trying to complete it. So as you're going through this, you'll see it's very, very similar to a lot of the things that we did in the Abattoir of Zir.
It's the same.
We want to make sure that this is a quick, punchy experience as you're playing and you're killing monsters. You're not going to be getting any loot from the drops. Like that stuff's not here to slow you down. It's just about like pushing as hard as you can.
So that's
Now,
the end
a couple
game.
of the major differences between what we've done in the Artificer's Pit relative to what we did in the Abattoir of Zir is first, in the Abattoir of Zir, when a player died while going through the experience, they were immediately ejected from the Abattoir of Zir. Like their run was over in the case of death. Here, we want to allow for a little bit more, a few more problems to occur, a few more errors, from the player as they're kind of going through. So that every time you die, what actually ends up happening is you add 30 seconds to your timer.
Okay, so
you're
dying
less
is for
and
free.
less likely to beat the timer, and that's important. At the end of the timer, you're not ejected from the pit. Like if you don't actually manage to keep time with the timer, you just don't get the mastery objective completion. And the mastery is tied to masterworking materials that you'll be using to go through the masterworking process for your items. In fact, the pit, as Charles referenced earlier, is the place you need to go in order to obtain the bulk majority of those masterworking
So I need to
materials.
farm another dungeon
So while
to get
you can get to the end
these
of the
things.
experience, and you will get rewards for having defeated the boss by the end of a pit run if you don't manage to finish with the timer in mind, you won't get access to those materials.
Okay.
So why is this? So one of the things we recognize that we think is very unique to Diablo and to SARPGs in general is that a lot of times players are making like efficiency bets about how they choose to engage with content. They're deciding, okay, I can kill monsters of this level fairly easily and without much risk. How much further beyond this level can I push in order to maximize the rewards I'm getting from the runs that I'm doing, and while also like maintaining good cadence and like managing my risk? And that's kind of like that fun sweet spot that we think works really, really well. AOZ was meant to like tap into a little bit of this, but it was also AOZ was designed to be an extraordinarily challenging piece of content from the get-go. Here, the pit starts in a somewhat more reasonable place. I think we understand that tier 45 Nightmare Dungeons are not the most challenging content.
I can see them screwing that up.
It goes up much higher than that, and the pit does as well. As the pit can go like well past tier 100, so you can be fighting level 200 monsters, level 250 monsters as you go deeper and deeper into the experience.
That's my endless
let's
nightmare
look,
dungeon
pretty
basically.
good time
This
going
is what
through
I
this.
said, right?
I think we
Unlimited
saw
nightmare
earlier that
dungeons.
Ruben actually like jumped into a portal to move
We just
to a
have
different
unlimited
area.
he did.
hit,
Yeah,
I
you can't
guess.
finish an entire pit run inside like that first area. You kind of are expected to like move on, but you also don't need to kill everything in either of these areas either. There's a good amount of creatures.
But there's
in both
probably not going to be
spaces.
rewards
You can
again.
Make up the time that you
So
need. He's making
it's not
good time
end game
too,
again because there's no loot.
So the idea is to try and find that level in the pit.
So
where
let's
you
wait
can
for
go
the
pretty
rewards.
efficiently
It's
and
probably just
quickly,
gonna drop
but where you're
legendaries, right?
pushing hard so you can get better rewards, right?
Right. Okay. So Ruben did a great job, Ruben. So
That's a good change though.
Okay, let's not get too excited.
The boss doesn't spawn on top
So,
of
yeah,
you.
so now
Wait,
he's
what?
going to go and he's going to fight
Finish
the,
it!
the boss in just a moment. Now, the second thing that's different about the pit that we you just start to see it a little bit.
Yeah.
There's different from what we've done in AOZ in the past. Is that occasionally during a pit run you're going to be confronted by another major boss or villain that you've seen. Like you'll see their echo occasionally appear just for a moment to perform a big attack a big sweeping attack, or that you're going to have to like avoid or deal with while you're dealing with the boss you're already fighting.
Why?
And this is happening throughout the duration of the
Is
pit
that like
as well.
traps?
No, and as you go deeper, you'll see this occasionally a little more frequently at the same time. So these are just another complication, like another thing that you're going to have to be thinking about while you're playing and trying to like remember the sorts of patterns. Eventually, you'll see a couple of these appearing as well. You know, so like you'll be dealing with that like that kind of pattern following as you play deeper and deeper into the pit.
Yeah,
I'll
so,
say
so it's kind of like
Right.
Elias, for instance.
So there's the
like
garbage loot,
a
right?
shade of Elias.
Just random
Yeah,
items.
come and do an attack.
Just do an attack in the middle
A
of
shade,
the
a shade
run.
of Lilith can appear as well.
Shade of Lilith can also appear,
Yeah,
which is
so
pretty cool.
these are definitely tough, tough things as you go deeper and deeper, and eventually you might see a couple of them as well in combination. So okay, so here Ruben killed the boss, got a number of different drops. There's a bug in this version that we're looking at right now where the items they're dropping are not actually ancestral, but that's not the case when players will be playing on the PTR. You all see ancestral items as the rewards for killing the boss here at the end.
But it's just random loot.
That, when you open the chest,
Nothing
you
new,
see there's
right?
a bunch of obdusite that popped out of it, which is a masterworking material. You know, I think he got 5, you know, from the first run. So as you go deeper in the pit, there's basically 3 tiers of masterworking materials that you're going to be able to earn through.
Okay.
So there's the obdusite, there's the ingolith, and then there is the neath iron. So these are available as you go deeper and deeper into the pit experience. I think
Okay.
obdusite right now is like
So it's just
like
farming
tiers
pits
1
to upgrade
20.
items?
You know, you'll be getting like amounts of obdusite. As you
Well.
go from like 21 to 40, you get amounts of ingolith, and as you go to neath iron and beyond, as you go into like like 40 and beyond, you start seeing more and more neath iron. And these things can also be like condensed down to lower level materials if you need them for resetting a masterwork item and starting at a lower level.
So you don't have to go back to the low level.
No,
you can
no,
stay
no.
at the high end.
You
and
can stay at a
just
higher level as you
trim
go.
it, yeah.
But to be clear, if you want to get to that rank 12 masterworking, they're really the best possible items, you do need to be pushing deeper levels of the pit. You
Yeah,
can't
for
just continually farm level 1. You want to push to that efficiency bet that you said. Push yourself to your limit to get the most materials per hour and just, really fight that hard content to get the best items.
That's correct. So yeah, if you want to go through that process.
So
and really
basically,
get
all you
the
do
best
is farm
items
pits
available
then,
for your
right?
build,
So we
you're
just
gonna wanna go
replace
through the
Nightmare
masterworking
Dungeons by
process.
pits.
Maybe even probably more than once, almost certainly more than once, right? To get the absolute very, very best items.
Okay, well,
So we think the pit's gonna be. It's a really fun experience. It is. It's.
I guess
very
it's
affordable
like
for
a,
different players. And
step
again,
into the right
as you're going,
direction,
you're
at
getting these
least.
Obsidian stones as you play. Like as you get deeper into the experience, you're going to get those. You're going to get the ability to go fight those level 200 tormented versions of these bosses. So like a level 200 tormented version of Barshan, and so on and so forth. All of these bosses have a higher chance to drop uber unique item as well. So now there's even more reason to want to go get some of these creatures on farm.
I mean, I like
And
this.
They have better drops. They more prolific in terms of the drops. They drop many more items as you're going through this. So these are going to be huge challenges for players to go and try to chase. Again, just in season 4. So that's like the current look at some of the things we're working on right now.
So the max items.
We're currently very excited about.
Yeah. So
So actually, if you think about it, it starts to make a little bit of sense, right? So there's going to be stronger versions of the items, and then there's going to be the pit, which is going up to like monster level 200 plus. So you're going to need these items to progress through the pit. So if they get the like difficulty scaling right, it actually is some kind of an end game there where you could use those items. They still don't fix build variety, but I have to say it's a step into the right direction. I can hand it to them.
Yeah, we're hour and a half in of all the.
I'm gonna put this at
content
ST
that we just
actually.
walked through with season 4, and as Adam had mentioned earlier, we haven't even gone through all the classes.
I like it.
You guys will actually see that. There's a lot more. You guys will actually see that next week. Normally, we do have a blog and patch notes kind of available like a day or two after a campfire chat. I am asking the community if it's okay if we give it to you guys next week, because the only reason why is that they're huge and we actually need to make sure that we get all the information in there. You guys will have it well before the PTR actually starts.
Okay,
And we
patch
will
notes
actually
next
have,
week. That's all right.
A blog kind of going through all the details of this actual campfire chat, as well as the giant list of patch notes for the PTR, which again will begin on April 2nd, run for a week. On PC Battle.net, and we'll have instructions of how to actually get into the PTR, download the client, and everything from that end as well. So I know we always end our campfire chats with a Q&A session.
Yep.
So we do want to make sure that we do a
that's
Q&A
it.
session right now. So if you guys have questions, please use Twitch chat.
I can't imagine there's any
specifically.
questions. So.
No, we
I can't
covered
imagine
everything,
this.
right?
Covered it all.
I thought it was a
All
perfect
angles.
explanation.
We did ask earlier this week on the forums if if anyone had any specific questions, and so we can actually tee up a question while people are populating questions in chat. So we'll start off with one that we have here from the forums. This is from Iggy. What will happen to current items
Throw them
after
away.
this reworked? Because obviously we're now changing a lot of things from our past
Please just
items
throw them
going
away.
into Season 4.
Yeah, so all of the items that you currently have on your characters or on the Eternal Realm will be flagged as what are called legacy items. And this means that they are not able to interact with the new systems of tempering or masterworking. They'll continue to function as they are, so that they're not going to break, they're not going to be re-rolled or changed in any way.
Okay,
They're just kind
that's
of
good.
say, hey, this
Blow
was
it
an
away.
item that in the old system, but if you want to engage with the new systems and find those greater affixes and temper all the cool new affixes onto it and do masterworking, of course, you're going to need to go out and find new items.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is a question from Toast and Pen, Eternal Realm, what's new? Everything we just talked about. Everything we just talked about.
But they didn't
Toast
talk
and
about
Pen
the season
is
at
gonna
all.
Be available in the Eternal Realm. So, and this will start with Season 4. So, if you are a person that just only plays on Eternal Realm and you have a character already there, of course you can just immediately start engaging in everything that we just kind of talked about right here. J Corsair 19, does the masterworking just increase the total range of the roll, or does it get you closer to a max roll?
So it increases the current value. So if you already had a max roll, it keeps on increasing. So as an example, you have an affix that could have rolled between 50 and 100, and you had a value of 90. Every time you increase it, it's going to increase that 90 by, or let's say you had it at 100, just to make the math easier, because quick math. If it was already at 100, the first masterworking upgrade will take it to 105. Even though the base roll range was just up to 100, you can continue progressing past that. If you had it, down at 50, it would go from 50 up to 55, and so on.
Arrow 1357 just asked, like, what about season? Like, is there season stuff as well? We actually aren't talking yet about the season
Because
items.
it's not ready.
Yes, this is all part of the season and part of the Eternal Realm. But we do have there are some things that we haven't talked about regarding Season 4 that we will be talking about here in the future.
The bulk effort for the team has really been spent on trying to ensure that this update is really meaty and all-inclusive. Like when I've talked before about, the Season 2 updates where we talk about like vulnerability damage and the many changes we had to make to kind of like get that into a better spot for the players overall. You can see like the amount of things that we did are kind of all connected in a lot of ways. And it's important they kind of come out together. It's difficult to do one thing in isolation. So a lot of teams worked together to kind of like bring this update and get over the finish line. So yeah, it's a huge lift. But there's more things to talk about later on, for the season.
Thorag the Warrior says, can multiple affixes increase per masterwork, or only one affix per masterwork?
Right, so when you're masterworking, most of the ranks will increase all of the affixes on the gear by a small amount. But when you hit those thresholds, the rank 4, rank 8, and rank 12, a single random affix will get a much larger boost.
Yeah.
And so because that happens 3 times on your journey from rank 1 to 12.
Yeah, I guess that's
in
what it's
theory,
gonna be.
all 3
Like
of
you
those
just
could
push
land on the
pit.
same affix if you get lucky.
So you push
and
pit
that
and do
one
the big
affix
bosses.
just goes through the roof.
Like Nightmare
Or
Dungeons
it
and
could be
stuff
spread
is
out
going to
the
be
3 different
irrelevant,
groups,
right?
for
I mean, you
instance.
got to probably do it to
That's
upgrade
just
your
the
glyphs.
nature of masterworking. You're going to get a different result every time.
So you're
go
going to
through
do
that
Nightmare
process.
Dungeons until your glyphs are max, and
So
then you're
I've
stuck
seen
in
a
the
lot of
pit,
people actually
basically.
mention this in chat.
That's
And
what it's gonna be, right?
Riker also just mentioned this in chat. And they're asking, is it just me, or was the camera more zoomed out in the dev build? Actually.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Actually,
Wow. Okay. Go ahead.
in Season 4, the camera will be more zoomed out.
Oh, that's
and
a
there will be
W.
an option. You can have what we had
I
before,
like that.
or you can zoom it out a little. So yes.
That's S tier.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a gameplay setting. It starts at the current default.
Correct.
Which is what we have in Diablo 4 today. But we've been hearing the feedback. We did make a move. Joe Shelley helped a lot with this, actually. Everybody helped a lot with this. We did make a move to like pull the camera out a little bit further. That's part of like a near far sort of like situation. So it's going to be available for you to see in the PTR.
Good eye. Good
Yeah.
eye.
Good eye.
Huge
Yeah.
update, yes, of course.
Yeah, we forgot to say that's another really good one to talk about.
Yeah.
Thanks, chat.
There are a lot of questions about loadouts.
Nope, no
do
loadouts.
You guys want to provide any context on that?
Yeah, so we've talked about this before. We're very, very excited about bringing in like an armory-like feature to Diablo 4. Now we've been hearing the feedback since like the gauntlet.
That's
going to
be with the
Which we're
expansion.
very excited about, and we see that there's an opportunity here. We don't have anything to announce today, but it is a thing the team has talked about. Like the UI team is very excited about. It's a thing we definitely want to move on at some point, but nothing to announce.
Yep. That one, I lost my track here. Do you have any intention of reviewing? I'm sorry, this is from Vix311 or 3II. Do you have any intention of reviewing class optimization? Examples like give more customization points or put Paragon after a higher level than 50?
So there's a number of things that we're talking about for the future. Things we can't talk about today. No, but you can imagine that like we're going to be having an expansion soon. We probably want to talk about some of that stuff.
So no class changes till expansion. You just said it.
Things for us to be considering.
A lot of people mentioning a loot filter.
Yeah.
Which I know, like we had mentioned as well, that we wanted to get through the itemization stuff. So
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. I think a lot of the desire for a loot filter in the current version of Diablo 4 stems from the problems that we initially mentioned. We really do just flood you with items, and it's like sifting sand, right? You need to look through all these items, and the one response is, hey, a loot filter could automate all this. We think in this new itemization world, where we are simplifying it in a lot of the ways that we already discussed, reduced number of affixes, simpler affixes, the item power, once you get to the late game, always dropping at the max, will help to alleviate a lot of those concerns.
I disagree
and it will
there.
make parsing through the items a lot easier in this new system.
Lady Ava 2016 mentioned, or
I totally
actually
disagree.
brings up something that I think we should talk about, which is, would it be possible to toss a different icon on the map when specific like greater affixes and things like that drop? Are there any plans for that in regards
Which
to
is a loot filter, basically.
We really want to get feedback from players as you go through the PTR experience. Even the thing that we showed, like the Roman numerals, you know, on the attached to the item names on the ground. Like even that's going through a bit of revision before it actually is released as part of the 1.4 release moment. So like that's going to get a little bit better. But like I think that it would be good to get feedback to see how these things feel. And it's something we'll continue to think about, because we do want those moments to be exciting when they actually occur. Yeah.
Brian C22, you say
I have an idea for a good loot filter. Just make like a switch in the menu where you can say only show items with greater affixes, period. Or auto salvage all items without greater affixes, period.
say higher the rifts, the better the items. Are we talking about the equivalent to primals?
So
and if people don't know, primals being a D3 specific item that was super powerful.
So as you go, we're not changing the rate at which like greater affixes, for example, could appear on like iPower 925 items, and we're not raising the iPower ceiling of items beyond 925 as you're going deeper in the pit. Instead, it's more about like as you go deeper in the pit, you're going to get more legendary drops. So this is going to give you more options, more chances of getting things that have like better, greater affix potential. You know, so that's really more the way that we're handling that. And then, of course, the master working materials that we're using to power and juice up all of your items.
Drummer Boy had asked specifically, can you do groups with in the pit?
Yes, you can party in the pit, yes.
Yes, okay. And then, let me see. We'll be seeing any like clan updates, social updates. This is
What's your problem,
big
dude?
question that a lot of people are asking about from within chat. Are there any plans on that or any progress regarding that?
So we have been talking a lot internally on the team about social updates and things we want to talk about soon. But we definitely hear the desire from the players that they're looking for more ways to like kind of get into groups and to form parts of people online, as opposed to just like talking in local chat or chat and trying to like reach out that way, or just going to Discord or just going to external sources. So we do have thoughts on things we want to do to kind of help that process along, but nothing to announce for season 4 at this time. Yeah.
I know there's also there's some comments about like the store, the shop, and things like that with related to items. There's actually, I know last time we had a Campfire chat, I had mentioned like, hey, our team that focuses on like the product team has been taking in a lot of feedback. There's actually going to be some changes here coming really soon that will be offering up new opportunities for people to use some of the platinum that they may have obtained in the battle pass for some really cool looking sets and stuff or cosmetics for their character. And we're also, I believe, taking and retroactively changing that portal pack.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually locked per class. So if you were like
Oh my God, the
a
portal
necromancer,
pack.
you could only use one of the colors. That is changing here in the future, where you'll be able to use it. There's no discrimination amongst portal colors, so
Yep, that's right.
you will be able to choose exactly what you want. And you know, I will say there's going to be some more significant changes. I know coming with the store that team has been taking in a lot of feedback. So
What if you bought all
we'll be able to
portals?
see more,
Are they going to
related to
refund
that
you
here, soon.
retroactively?
Let me see if I can get any more questions. Castordiff says, any PvP news, balance, new rewards?
Nothing to announce on PvP right now. The focus of this update has been predominantly on the core underpinnings of our SARPG experience, trying to make sure that it feels like there's a really exciting gear chase for players to pursue once they get to a certain level of power. That we have done a lot, like what Charles talked about, like condensing down a lot of our affixes to make items just feel more engaging in general. Going through all of our various classes, trying to open up a lot of new build opportunities. So it's kind of like what we're really trying to do here is respond to a lot of the really, really big major feedback we've been hearing, honestly, since launch, and try to like get a good, big, sizable update for players to go and engage with there. But we didn't spend time in features like PvP, you know, and because that would distract us from what we're really trying to focus on at the time instead.
These things are going to fundamentally change everything, though, like
That's
PvP
true.
as
It
well.
touches-
Like
it trickles
how
down.
you make your character, the builds you make, how you do everything fundamentally is going to change from this.
That's right.
So this was the big thing we're trying to nail, and all of our eyes were focused on that.
That's right.
Dristren asks, I know Uber uniques cannot be tempered, but can they roll greater affixes and can they be mastercrafted?
Yes, on both accounts. Uniques can roll greater affixes, just the same as Ancestral Legendaries.
Wait, what?
It doesn't need to be Ancestral, so it's World Tier 4, same as before. Same concept with Uber uniques, and even through the Respondent Spark, the crafting system, there is a small chance that when you craft it, it comes with an Uber, the Uber unique comes with a greater affix, even when you craft it, just as if it would drop.
That's cool.
All right, I'm going to do one last question. This is from GGI 101. Will the aspect changes also apply to alternate characters? Do I need to level up my aspects on alternate characters, for example?
Aspects are partition bound. So and what I mean by that is if you're playing a seasonal character and you want to play an alt on the seasonal realm, like that alt will also benefit from all the unlocks you've got within your Codex of Power. I do believe your first character.
There is a separation between hardcore and not hardcore characters.
That's correct.
as
Yes,
well.
that's correct.
Hardcore characters are kind of their own thing, even on the seasonal realm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a lot of info delivered in this this Campfire chat.
Yeah.
Probably the most info we've ever delivered in any Campfire chat or even developer update live stream. But it's important stuff because obviously with Season 4, we have a PTR coming up. For those that may have missed it, it will be on April 2nd through April 9th. And it'll be on PC Battle.net only. So players who want to help test things out, provide feedback, please do so. We'll be checking all our, our social channels,
Isn't that
Reddit,
Easter?
the forums. The forums will actually have a new separate PTR forum available there. This also does mean Season 3
Sunday?
is going to be extended because we
So
want
that's
to
the
make
Easter
sure we grab
weekend?
all the feedback from this PTR and all the feedback from the community, and we have enough time to actually
no, it's after
implement
the
that
Easter
for
weekend, actually.
Season 4. So Season 3 is going to be extended to May 14th. Season 4, of course, will start on May 14th as well. And we'll be coming out with more information on what Season 4 is specifically. And all the details that we actually talked about here today will be in a very extensive blog along with all the patch notes of all the small things like the class changes that Adam actually wasn't able to get through. Small changes, small. Will be in those patch notes as well. And we still actually do have another update that will be coming out next week for Diablo 4. And this one has actually been long awaited because this one does include some big quality features on the graphics side for D4. And we will have a blog that will be talking about it. As you guys know, ray tracing is coming to D4, and that'll be hitting next week on March 26th. So people will be able to maybe if you've got a rig for it, you can totally turn up all your graphical settings, get ray tracing with D4, and we'll also be talking about how console players will also be able to take advantage of it in our blog next week.
That's
So,
like really unfortunate.
lots of
for
stuff
me.
coming down, and lots to talk about. Again, next week we'll have all the information on blog and patch notes. But thanks again
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks again, Joe Shelley, who's also still in the room over here.
Thanks,
He's
Joe.
waving.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, huge shout out to the community. Thank you guys again for all the wonderful feedback that you guys have been providing. And we're really excited for you guys to jump into PTR, jump into all the Season 4 itemization, class changes, and of course our new endgame changes as well. So we will catch you soon. And yeah, next week we'll see you with the blog and the patch notes. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, I mean, just take a look at this. So that was, well, let's just say it was a little bit more than I expected, but it was definitely way less than hyped. So I really have to say I like most of the item changes. I think it's a good direction. The item changes, like the progression system, especially like the greater affixes on uniques. So you're gonna have uniques which are like, you know, have like a high rolled unique affix, which are like have like a high rolled affix, which is gonna make them, you know, substantially stronger. Then you can do the master working on the uniques to make them even more stronger. So I like this whole item progression story. I think that's a really good thing. I don't think it has the depths yet to make it like a viable endgame crafting system, but I think it's definitely a way into the right direction, right? So let me just phrase this, right? This empowered items with 1.5 times affixes here, right? This is going to be basically, let me just, you know, by just making this green, right? This is going to be like groundbreaking, because this is going to put like this whole level on rarity, and it's actually going to show when the item drops. It's going to show like this little 2 behind it, right? That it has empowered affixes. So you basically will be able to distinguish. I really hope they make it glow on the item so you can directly see it before salvage or something like that. That would be a good addition. But you definitely have like something here which is to chase after. So this is a big, big W. Same with the masterworking system, right? Upgrading items with masterworking. Even though it has randomness on it, you can redo it all over again, right? So it is not that bad, because you're going to be farming those pit runs anyway, and you're going to have the materials to keep re-upgrading your item. So if you have a really good item, you can just keep recycling it until you hit like some good affixes. So I think this is also a pretty big W here. Same with the greater affix, or I guess greater affixes and empowered items. I guess it's called greater affixes, right? Greater affixes items. So on uniques, again, this is a big W. So this makes uniques even more rare. What I don't like about this is still all going to be stat sticks, right? So there's no new mechanics here. So Frozen Orb is awesome, but you know, what we saw is actually like not so hyped. I'm gonna put this down to B tier actually. So the pit bosses, like the through the pit bosses, I guess level 200, right? Bosses. So you get 1 free Uber unique. They basically said every empowered boss is going to drop a resplendent spark the first time you kill it. So that's basically going to be 1 free Uber unique after you killed all of those. So, and Uber unique of your choice, right? So this is a big W, I have to say. I like this one. So yes, this whole legendary items with 3 but more powerful affixes. I don't know what you think about this yet. It comes down how the affixes are balanced. So I'm gonna leave this at A tier for now, right? So rework affixes, again, we have to see how this turns out. Do a little bit more to gems. They didn't go into any specifics at all, so I really, I guess making gems a little bit better is a good thing, right? Conjuration and minion buffs is a good thing. T-Bolt's nerf, I actually like that. The item is way too mandatory, and I don't like the effect of it at all. I don't like, why would you have to go unstoppable to regenerate resource and get a damage bonus? Doesn't make any sense to me. So I like that that's removed. I like that the infinite teleport is removed. That is ridiculous. I hated that. Even though it's like completely imbalanced, I love that it's gonna be removed. And item effect scaling with weapon damage might actually make some builds viable, like the Lightning Nova build and stuff like that, and also like the Blue Rose, for example, which is completely underwhelming because it does like such a little amount of damage. It might make like stuff like that viable. But I'm still gonna leave this at A tier. I think that is fine. So Asus Ferocity fixed is a problem because it disables frost builds. It doesn't disable frost builds, but frost builds basically for sorceress don't have any ultimate they can use, so any key passive. So the key passive for frost are useless, right? One key passive just only gives you a little bit of extra damage for core skills after a lucky hit chance of 20% or something like that. It's not good. Avalanche is basically garbage, and Shatter is, well, Shatter might be useful actually in high levels of pit, but in general it's a pretty bad key passive. So I really don't like well, obviously it has been fixed, but I don't like that it has been fixed because you're also removing the attack speed from the Frost Sorceress. I mean, you can still play Asus Ferocity on Frost Sorc for the attack speed, and which is probably still going to happen. So I think it's not a good thing. I don't like this. You would have to buff the Frost key passives. Hardcore, more hardcore, you know, I don't have any opinion about that. Helltide, better. I wrote it. It's still boring and useless no matter how much you buff it because, you know, it's going to be random. It might be possible to level in Helltides with the more monster spawns, which might be a viable option. Which might be pretty good because you're going to have a lot of Forgotten Souls after your leveling phase and you don't have to ever go there again. Again, I don't get why Frozen Orb synergizes with Conjuration. It's like so random, it doesn't make any sense. Stop it, remove it. And Andariel, same drop table as Duriel. Don't like it at all. Just give them half and half. That would be a big W. This is a big L. And now, yeah, let's go with the negatives, right? PTR delayed, season delayed. The season already is dead, and now we even have to play the dead season for another month. That's like a big W. Really, really big. What's your problem with half and half? Like, you add an extra boss which has the same drop table as Duriel. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, who cares? Like, yeah, you can go Duriel or Andariel, whatever you like more, but, you know, it doesn't matter at all. So if you would just make it half and half, give half of the Uber Uniques to Duriel and the other half to Andariel, it's about target farming your Uber Unique, dude. It's about if you need Shaco, and Shaco is obviously going to be dropped by Andariel, you have double the chances. That is, in the end, it is way better for you because you don't have to farm more mats. You just you do the same number of bosses. You just have a more a smaller drop table. So if you want to keep the system, if you would like, you know, spread the drop table across the two bosses, you would actually have to make half the amount of runs. So just understand it and think about it. It actually makes perfect sense. So yeah, these are like big W's. Rare items with only 2 affixes. I don't get it. Rares are basically going to be junk. So you're not going to pick up any rares at all. Why would you pick up a rare item if it only has 2 affixes compared to a legendary which has 3? Right? This is a huge W. Because this literally makes rare items completely useless. They are trash from the beginning. From the very beginning, rare items are completely useless. You're not going to use them at all. They're junk, right? Because a legendary item will have 3 affixes, and there's like no chance on Earth that a rare item will be better. Rare items are junk. I have no clue what this changes, but they can as well just remove rare items from the game and drop materials instead. Because this is just going to force you to pick up rare items and salvage them for materials if you need them. And this is just a stupid system. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, the difference between 2 affixes and 3 affixes is like so huge, which literally, like, rare items are not going to be useful for anything at all. So 925 for all monsters from 95 plus. That's basically every single monster is going to drop max level gear from, you know, you're playing like 6 or 7 hours and you're already at like max item progression. I don't really like this at all. I feel like the progression there should be a little bit slower. But, you know, you could argue this, like, get this to like C tier. It's like not so terrible. Even more XP, no progression. I also don't like this, but it's not ultra terrible. But I still don't like this at all. We didn't get any seasonal theme, so we got the random AOZ like endgame, I guess. It's not random, but it's the pit. PTR, basically. No extra stash tabs. Sorry for that. No extra stash tabs. Still stuck with those. Still can't believe that they are not getting those. So yeah, the codex changes are obviously like good. I mean, they're good, but they should have been in the base game. So I really cannot say that's a huge W. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it is going into the right direction. You gotta hand it to them. It's going into the right direction. There's some stuff in there I don't like at all. But in general, I feel like the only thing they are missing here is like basically no big class updates. I know they literally said nothing like meaningful about class updates, like just some random stuff, you know, some aspects changing here and there, but no major updates to class change, which I was like really hoping for this, you know, arcing multi-shot, whatever, like we had on the construct to add it like to like regular skills. And they didn't do it. So I really gotta put this on D tier here, because there's literally no meaningful class balance changes announced. Right? Maybe there will be, but they haven't been announced. So we wait for the patch notes next week, obviously. But yeah, so overall, I think it was pretty good. I don't think it was terrible. Some things I dislike, but in general, I think it's really going into the right direction here. I think there's gonna be a battle for, like, you know, pit run level 250 where you really need those strong gear pieces. So we kind of have like an endgame progression. Like, does it have to be this pit? I don't know. If I like the system that it's a pit, it's a dungeon, you have 10 minutes and you gotta finish the dungeon in time. You know, it's arguable, but it's you gotta hand it to them. It is some kind of endgame. If it is balanced correctly with the gear progression and the pit progression, it is definitely a valuable kind of endgame, I would say. And if the level 200 bosses are like challenging, that's also something they need to balance, right? If the level 200 bosses are challenging and actually hard, I mean, they don't give like a lot of rewards, probably. They should drop like a guaranteed Uber unique or something like that if they're like really hard. But if they're challenging and hard, that's also some kind of an end game. It's not like boss farming in, you know, but if, for example, if they would have higher chances, or let's say the level 200 boss drops a guaranteed unique item with like a greater affix or something like that, right? So you actually get something out of those. That would be a good idea, I guess. So, I mean, I can see the direction where this is going, and I have to say I kind of like the direction this is going. That's like my final verdict on this stream is I like the itemization changes, except for some exceptions. I like the end game and the new boss progression. I don't like that there has been no major changes to classes or skills announced. So W for items, W for a little bit more end game, big L for no more meaningful customizations. Even though they might come through the tempering affixes, right? So the tempering, by the way, is let me just put one more here, one on top. So this would be, right, tempering affixes random, unfortunately. I'm still gonna put this in like A tier because I don't know. It's maybe it would be like a B tier or something like that. But I think it's okay. So yeah, that's my thinking. We're gonna have the PTR in like 2 weeks. It's just gonna be for a week though. I don't know if that's going to be long enough to it's just gonna be 1 week, and we want to like fully test like these, pits level 200 plus. I don't know if it's going to be enough time for that, but we shall see. Maybe we will see how the progression works when the PDR hits and how deep we can push these pits. So maybe it will. Maybe it will. Maybe the items are going to be too rare that you're not going to have enough time on the PTR. And that would actually be something I would be hoping for. Because, if I can get perfect gear and push down through like very, very high levels of this pit within 1 week, I feel like it would again be like too fast. I feel like you should take like a month or something like that to like farm the highest level gear to reach like very, very high tiers of like this pit story. I feel like if you can farm it in a week, it's not going to be meaningful end game. It's just going to be like useless grind again. But we will see how it works out and how it scales. So I'm actually like kind of a little bit excited for this. Unfortunately, they delayed the season, which is really bad for me because exactly on that date, I'm on like a 3 days business trip. So I won't be able to play in the very beginning of the season, which I actually hate. But, you gotta do what you gotta do. My hopes are they're gonna delay this season so I can actually play. But yeah, that's my reaction. I'm not gonna make a summary of this. I'm pretty sure like there's other content creators who will do this. I guess it's like easy enough, not so complicated what has been like shown in the stream. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I will probably be there in like 2 weeks on the PDR. I don't think I will be making any like videos before the PDR actually hits. I don't really see anything. Maybe when the patch notes are there, I will maybe make a video like speculating what builds could work on the PTR. I guess that's gonna be it. But until then, see you guys later.